hate to say it, but his parents have been feeling unwell as of late, and I'm staying with them to help take care of Alex.
Oh, so that's serious.
Oh, no, it's not serious. Nothing terminal. It's just a touch of consumption.
And welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking every 2 years they let a slut into Ohio State. Her timing was good. We're talking he makes up on diction what he lacks in dick. And we're talking I'm fit as a fiddle and ready for cock. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we're talking, please remember that although we may run out of Pan Am coffee, we'll never run out of TWAT.
Wow, I fully left you. I never forget a face once I've sat on it, or whatever that famous line is. I totally thought you were going to go for it.
You know, I have talked to so many people about this movie recently that is always my go-to line. So I was like, fuck, maybe I said it in the outro last week. So I didn't want to repeat myself. But
you know what? You may have. You may absolutely have.
I may have. But yes, everyone, we are discussing our first Ken Russell film, as well as my first Ken Russell film, in 1984's Crimes of Passion.
Jesus Christ, this movie, if this is indicative of what Ken Russell's filmography is like, because yes, I think this is my only film. Neither one of us has seen The Devils. Yeah. Don't come for us. It's often not available, and we're still hoping for that 4K release in the fall, but man, this guy is wild. I feel like we are living in John Waters' fever dream.
Yeah, I loved this movie, Joe. And here's the thing. I'm not even sure if it fully all comes together by the end. Like, this might be a case where I really like a lot of the parts enough to where, like, the fact that the whole doesn't really matter that much, it doesn't matter to me. This is a gorgeous movie. It is. Yes. It does have a point of view, even though it is, I mean,
it's messy.
Yes, messy is the word I was going to use just a little bit.
I'm fully in agreement with you, though. I was reflecting on this because I've seen this film twice. I think you've seen it 2 or 3 times now.
Yeah, I'm on my 3rd viewing. I will say, though, so I did watch this a couple months because I've had this Arrow Blu-ray for a while, and I watched it just to know what it was like, just a regular view. But I got really high for it for my first viewing.
Oh, shit. Okay.
I had so much fun. I mean, the comedy really popped out for me when I was high. But then, of course, I watched it twice to prepare for this. Because, I mean, again, as messy as this movie is, I do think it's a pretty dense text.
Me too. I was actually getting nervous in anticipation of preparing for this because I feel like I haven't actually done enough research. But I will 100% agree with you. I think that there's a lot going on here. I do think that the film has a point of view. Confess, I don't entirely love the takeaway message. So I do have some problems with the 3rd act.
Fair.
But I think the movie is always incredibly watchable. The 2 performances at the front are impeccable, just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, Kathleen Turner is so good in this movie, y'all. Like,
she's super good. And then Anthony Perkins is like, was he actually doing poppers? Because he is manic, and I love it.
He was doing poppers, by the way.
Okay, fantastic. Fantastic. But yeah, like this movie feels like it has a lot that it is trying to say. You know, no one's going to accuse Ken Russell of not having a point of view or being a confronting, oh my God, what is this guy trying to do with his movies? Why is he trying to piss off everyone?
Yeah.
Audacious, yes. It's like this movie feels like it was made with adjectives in mind.
I will say, though, so my first viewing, my high one, I loved every scene with Kathleen Turner and Anthony Perkins, and every scene with neon lighting, be it blue or pink or red or whatever. I struggled with the John Laughlin Annie Potts scenes because I was like, these are so wildly like boring compared to everything, which
that's a thing
by design.
Yes.
I will say on a sober rewatch, I actually connected with a lot of the John Laughlin Annie Potts stuff more. I mean, not more than but more than I did on my first viewing.
Absolutely. And I do think that that's one of the really tough things to take away from a first time watch because everything that Turner and Perkins are doing is so exciting and in your face and just ridiculous. And then you think, okay, everything else is kind of boring. It's a little too sedate, but it's also the grounding mechanism for the film. Not only does it allow you to catch your breath, but that's where the real emotional heart of the film is. Is it sometimes a little bit dull? Yes, but I think that's, as you said, that's by design because you need those moments in order to make the rest of it feel fantastical and lurid and neon drenched and erotic and that kind of stuff.
Exactly that. So, okay, well, let's dive into this, Joe.
Let's
because
do it.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. But so as I said, this is, both of our first Ken Russell films, and I honestly didn't know much about this director. But
okay,
just a really, really, really quick primer. Like, he was a British film director known for his very flamboyant and controversial style, with his most well-known films being the aforementioned 1971 historical horror film The Devils, which again is getting a 4K theatrical release later this year.
Yeah.
We're hoping for a physical release.
Yeah, because here's my biggest issue with what they've been doing lately. They, as in Hollywood and distributors, they keep doing these gorgeous 4K restorations, and then they never release them on physical media, or they never go to streaming. So half the time I'm like, that's great, we can't cover it, because if people didn't make the theatrical run, then the film is still unavailable.
Yeah, but I will say, though, I will be making that theatrical run, because I've heard so much about The Devils that it's practically notorious by this point. So
absolutely. Yeah.
I'm going to go see its uncut 4K version in theaters in October. Absolutely.
Here's the thing. I think you and I should both do it, but we should try to watch whatever version we can find beforehand so that we can appreciate the uncut edition.
Well, but I think, yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. Maybe. You know what, folks? Let us know. If you have thoughts.
Let us know. But his other famous film, so 1975's Tommy, later adapted into the Broadway musical The Who's Tommy.
Right. Okay.
A 1980s surreal sci-fi horror film, Altered States, which I think that's the one I'm aware of the most outside of Crimes of Passion.
Right. Yeah.
1986's psychological horror film Gothic with Gabriel Byrne, and 1988's horror comedy The Lair of the White Worm with Hugh Grant.
Okay, so people have requested that we cover The Lair of the White Worm, and then is Gothic... Is that the one that has the incredibly striking cover art that's adapted from that famous painting of a goblin sitting on a man's chest?
Oh, wow. First, I thought you were going for American Gothic, with the farmer pitchfork people. But no, yeah, you are absolutely right. Yes, Gothic is the one with the goblin sitting on, I think it's a woman's chest, but it's someone's chest regardless.
It is a woman's chest, yes, now that I'm looking at it.
But yeah, so, it seems like, yes, The Devils and maybe even Altered States and definitely The Lair of the White Worm are things we might want to think about covering in the future. So I am pulling a lot of this. So I, as I said, I have the Arrow 4K of this. Ken Russell did pass a couple decades ago, but there is an interview with the film's writer, Barry Sandler, that goes for like 30 minutes. So I'm actually pulling a lot of my production history from this. So it's from the writer, not the director, as well as an interview with Sandler in Starburst magazine in 2016. And then also supplementing it with a little bit of Kathleen Turner's interviews over the years, as well as excerpts from her own autobiography.
Okay. God, I hope she still likes this movie.
Boy. Okay, so Crimes of Passion, written by Barry Sandler, who made a name for himself after selling his first screenplay while he was in film school at UCLA. And the film was called Kansas City Bomber, a Raquel Welch starring movie about a roller derby girl. This script was actually his master's thesis film at UCLA. And
fun.
He tells a story about how, they had maps of the stars at the time. He was in LA, so he actually went to Raquel Welch's house to ask her to be in the movie. And it went through months of her assistant might give it to her, blah, 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 blah. But eventually, Welch read it. She got it. She's like, I want to do it. But then MGM, a film studio, got involved. And it became a whole thing. So, of course, 19-year-old Barry Sandler obviously lost control when the studio brought in professional screenwriters to rework it. But I only bring this up because this experience led Sandler to demand more control in any future original screenplay that he sold, saying it was always going to be in his contract that he'd be happy to make changes to his screenplay, but that no other writer could come in and tamper with it.
Okay, that's a tough lesson to learn on your very first feature, but I think a very important one.
But I also feel like a deal like that would not be made nowadays.
I mean, good luck trying to get that. Yeah, nobody's going to say yes to that, especially to someone so young, unless maybe they're like Kane Parsons or somebody now.
Yeah, that film came out in 1972, and Sandler would continue to write screenplays throughout the 70s. And there's nothing too notable on his resume during that time, except for a couple of Agatha Christie adaptations, but... In 1982, he wrote the screenplay for a movie called Making Love, starring Harry Hamlin and original Charlie's Angel Kate Jackson. And this movie, because I should point out, by the way, Barry Sandler is an openly queer screenwriter. This movie was about a married man coming to terms with his gayness and the love triangle that develops between him, his wife, and another man.
Okay. Cool.
This is one of the first films to portray like queerness in a positive light, and that it was coming so early on during the AIDS crisis is pretty notable. It was not a box office success, but it was precedent setting.
It's funny because as you said the title, I thought, that sounds really familiar. Why do I know that? Because Harry Hamlin became a queer icon to a lot of gay men because of that performance.
That makes so much sense. And I gotta say, I mean, the reviews weren't great for it. Like, apparently it's very melodramatic and soapy, which I'm like, I mean, yeah, it's queer. Like, why not?
Yeah.
But I mean, he's so cute in it, though. I do really want to watch this movie, actually.
Cool.
But what inspired him to make Crimes of Passion his next screenplay? Because Crimes of Passion comes out in 1984. So Sandler said, in a way, I was tapping into what was going on around me during the 80s. It was just at the beginning of the advent of the AIDS crisis. People had difficulties with relationships. There was a lot of sex going on, and it was very easily accessible, and a lot of people were using it as a kind of excuse or a defense or rationale or something to avoid intimacy, to avoid relationships. And we definitely see that in this movie.
Yes.
I saw all these elements, these sexual dynamics going on around me, and it was the end of the 70s, just going into the 80s, when I started to write the script for Crimes of Passion. We were still very much coming out of the 70s era of sexual liberation, and while in many ways I applauded that and very much was a part of it, I also saw that there were downsides to it as well. And so I thought using that kind of framework and arena for an idea for a film would be an intriguing avenue to explore. A lot of words, but basically, you know, people really being open with their sexuality, people having a lot of sex in place. And I think that's also where I wish we could have dug into this a little bit more. Maybe that's what the film itself is doing, but it almost seems like he resents the sexual revolution for... Or saying that, like, by emphasizing sex, you automatically lose out on intimacy.
Yes, and spoiler alert, that is kind of my issue with the end of this film. I don't entirely agree with its message or what it does to the China Blue Joanna character. I don't love it.
Oh, yeah. The end for China Blue / Joanna is the equivalent of, like, Damsel in Distress, where it's like, oh, she just needed a man to save her.
Not even the actual like physical climax of this, but where it leaves her as a character, where it's basically, oh, I was only doing sex work because I was trying to resist engaging with people on an intimate or emotionally intimate level. But now I can embark on a boring as fuck milquetoast relationship with this dude because I've allowed him in.
I know. I'm choosing to believe that Joanna is still engaging in sex work as her job, even though I don't think that's actually the implication by the end of the film.
I don't take that at all, unfortunately.
Yeah. Now, the script, though, it went through a few different versions. Sandler went through about 40 different drafts before Ken Russell even got his hands on it. So, due to the content of the script, they did have a hard time getting it going. And there were certain filmmakers who were interested in getting involved. So, like, before Ken Russell came aboard, they had meetings with John Frankenheimer and John Carpenter. I know, right? Like, what would that have looked like?
Interesting, because and folks, I'll confess, I don't know all of John Carpenter's filmography, but I don't get sexy from a lot of his stuff.
No, you're right. There's not a lot of sexiness or because I mean, I would call this, or it's been described as an erotic thriller.
Erotic thriller, for sure.
Yeah, but John Carpenter hasn't really had his hands in that pot in his career.
No.
But anyway, you had all these filmmakers who were really intrigued by the script, but not studios. And certain actors like Cher were interested in doing it. Cher actually had meetings with Barry Sandler for this movie, for the Joanna China Blue role.
That is such a different film.
Very well, and this would have been so early because like Cher had a string of flops towards the end of the 70s on her album side, and so that's why she spent so much of the 80s like trying to get into film. So she only released, I want to say 2, maybe 3 albums in the entirety of the 80s. So this would have been the very beginning of her film career, and boy oh boy, what a statement that would have been.
Yeah, possibly in a negative sense.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think you just covered, or recently covered Silkwood on one of your other podcasts recently, and I think that was probably her big statement movie where she was fighting like, look, I'm an actress, everyone.
Yes, and she has a very small role in that, so folks, you can go and listen to Jen and I talk about it on Murder Made Fiction, but yeah, that was 81.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So yeah, it would have been around this time then. So anyway, around 1983, New World Pictures came aboard.
Here we go.
I know, Joe. And so everyone, the New World should sound very familiar to you, be it from all of our Hellraiser episodes or even last week's The Howling episode. And you're going to hear a name come back from that episode as well. So,
okay.
Anyway, New World was kind of an exploitation company, but Jonathan Axelrod, who was the head of production there, wanted to take it in another direction, saying he wanted to go into a more sophisticated area. And I guess Crimes of Passion, you read the script, you're like, oh yeah, this is exploitation, but it's also like...
It's much more adult.
Yeah, it's classy.
Well, I have a feeling the critical reviews are going to say otherwise, but yes, compared to something like Lycanthropy.
Yes, exactly that. Yeah, we're not having werewolves just have sex by the fire and half makeup, but...
I mean...
Kinda. Now, Sandler, though, happened to have the same agency as Ken Russell, ICM. And one of his agents asked him, hey, like, do you want us to send your script to Ken Russell? And Sandler was like, yes, absolutely. Like,
obviously.
Because he was like, there's a couple filmmakers, like if you're in film school, like there's a couple filmmakers that you're like, okay, if I could work with these guys before I die. And, it was like Francis Ford Coppola, Roman Polanski, maybe not as much anymore.
Back in the day, you would have said yes.
Yeah, for sure. And Ken Russell was absolutely on that list. So he was like, yes, please send in my script. Russell responded. And here's the thing, though. So Russell just had a really bad experience on Altered States. Not just problems with the studio, but also problems with the source novel author, Paddy Chayefsky. Not the screenwriter, but the book author, which I guess, he had some creative control, I guess, over that script and how that film turned out.
Okay, maybe you had a similar deal to Sandler.
Well, and so that's the thing.
Change my book.
So Russell wasn't ready to jump back into Hollywood filmmaking because, again, he's also British. He's used to working across the pond. But there were a few years between Altered States and his next project because he was just like, I don't want to deal with the Hollywood system. I don't want to have some cocky-ass writer coming in. And I'm assuming he already knew about the clause in Sandler's contract about how, no one else can change my shit.
Yeah, just, you know what? I'm going to take a breather for a couple of years.
But yeah, so Russell was uneasy, and nevertheless, Sandler went to go talk to him, and they talked for several hours at their first meeting, and it finally got through to Russell that Sandler wasn't going to be the controlling writer that he had experienced in Altered State, and they eventually formed a really close bond. So the best thing about this production that I can glean is that Russell and Sandler agreed on almost everything, and if they didn't, they worked together to make it something that they could both agree on. So this was the antithesis of the experience he had in Altered States.
There we go. What you hope for when you make a movie. Collaborative.
Yes. And Russell had a really great respect for the script. And so if the studio wanted to make changes, he was adamant about not making those changes. So he also had Sandler's back when he was like, no, this is the script I agree to do. Like, we're going to do this. And he told them, the studio, you will not commercialize this. You will not neuter this. You will not popularize it. You will not take any of the uniqueness out of the script in an effort to conventionalize it. New World said, okay.
I applaud that so much, but I already know that things are going to go badly for this film. So part of me, I don't know, I never want people to censor their art for the sake of commercialism unless that truly is your goal, where you're like, I just want to make a bunch of money. I want to get as many eyes on this as possible. But from what we know of Ken Russell and also what you're telling me about Sandler, that just doesn't really seem like their aim. So I can see that causing a lot of problems with both a studio and then censors?
Yeah. I mean, truthfully, there was no issue with the studio and the content of the film until the MPAA came back saying this is an X rating, because the studio said you have to deliver an R-rated film. But before we get there, let's talk about this casting. No, you're fine. So, okay. They also agreed on every casting choice. And Russell, again, being British, wasn't familiar with a lot of American actresses. So when they were looking for the right actress to play Joanna / China Blue, they sat in a screening room for a few days, and Sandler showed him like a bunch of movies of different actresses. But Kathleen Turner, was a huge star at the time, having just done Body Heat, and Romancing the Stone was about to come out, but it hadn't come out yet.
She's so hot at this time then.
So she was really on the rise, but she was still like relatively green, Body Heat was her big like breakout into the industry. But and you would think, well, yeah, that's enough to prove herself.
I mean, it's a woman, so no, she needs at least 5 hits under her belt.
Exactly. And Romancing the Stone would at least be, it's a tonal departure from Body Heat, so it would have shown a different side of the actress. But Ken Russell watched Body Heat, and he was like, yeah, I like her, but I'm really not sure if I'm like really into her.
Wow. Okay.
But Turner, by this point, had gotten a hold of the script and wanted to do it. So Sandler goes, okay, wait, maybe I'm not showing you the right movie. So he then showed Russell the Steve Martin comedy, The Man with Two Brains, in which Kathleen Turner plays his, like, cheating, like, bitchy wife.
Okay.
She's apparently one of the funniest parts of the movie. I've never seen this movie.
I've never seen it, no.
I didn't even know I've seen the poster for this a lot.
I didn't realize she was in it.
I didn't either. And she's like the co-lead of the movie.
Wild. Okay.
But apparently she's really funny in it. And after Russell watched this, he fell in love with Turner, realizing that she could do comedy, which I guess that was the one sticking point for Russell, was like China Blue is partly the comic relief of this movie.
Absolutely.
So we need to have an actress who can do comedy. And so after watching The Man with Two Brains, he was sold. He was like, yep, let's get Kathleen Turner in here.
Okay.
Turner's team, though, was aghast at her decision to be in this movie. And
of course. Ma'am, have you seen the script?
Yeah. And everyone she knew said, you're becoming America's sweetheart. You cannot play a $50 streetwalker. Those were exact quotes, by the way. But telling her not to do something, according to Turner, has never worked. She said that
God, I love her so much.
Usually, if she just finished exploring one thing, she wants to explore something completely different. Like, she's very been there, done that in her approach. And so, after doing something that's more family appropriate, like Romance in the Stone, she was like, oh, no. Let's go to this thing right now.
Let's go to X-rated territory, shall we?
Now, in her 2008 autobiography, Send Yourself Roses, Turner said, and I quote, I feel to this day, Crimes of Passion was some of my best work, even though I wasn't so thrilled about the film as a whole. Ken Russell, the director, is truly a genius, but a mad, self-sabotaging genius. And the writer of the script, who I believe had some producing power, was easily one of the most unpleasant people I have ever worked with. Ken was drinking a great deal at the time. As the days went on, things got increasingly out of hand, and there was no order. And Anthony Perkins had an appalling drug habit. Yeah. Sandler corroborated Turner's story about Russell's drinking, saying, the memories I have of Ken, he liked to drink, he liked his wine, so he'd start drinking early in the morning, and he got better and sharper as the day went on. I could never figure it out.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Honestly, just the idea of directing a movie, being in charge of a beast with so many moving parts, and being day drunk all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, no.
And I imagine for an actor, I mean, if you're also in that kind of state of mind, or that altered state, you might say, it's probably a rough set to be on. But I mean, I still like that she can say that, like, I think this is some of my best work. I just it was a rough time.
Right. I mean, the reality is sometimes when you make art, it's not easy. I'm not excusing that behavior, but I mean, the method by which you get to the end result, even if the end result is magnificent, doesn't always mean that process was easy to go through. Well,
and she's very even when it comes to acting, she's like, no, I'm not into method acting. Like, that's absolute horseshit. And so I think, for a director like Russell, I mean, it's not like, I don't know, a director doesn't go method because it's not the same thing, but like whatever director's version of method acting is, that sounds like something that Ken Russell would be.
Super intense, I'm imagining.
Yeah. Now, the Reverend Shane character in the original draft of the script was a shoe salesman who pretended to be a psychiatrist in the red light district.
Okay. I could see that working.
Yeah, exactly. And he would go out there and under the facade of being a psychiatrist, try to analyze the sex workers, which was his way of achieving power and control. But Anthony Perkins signed on, and this would have been, just after Psycho 2.
Right.
He had lunch with Ken Russell and Barry Sandler, and he told them, look, I have an idea I want to throw at you guys. Like, I just did Equus on Broadway. Equus, I know that as the horse play.
Daniel Radcliffe showing his all.
Yeah, exactly that. But either way, though, he's like, I just did Equus for 2 years, and in that play, I played the psychiatrist character.
So he's over it.
Yeah, he's like, could we make Shane anything other than a psychiatrist? Because I'm worried that I'll be bringing my character from Equus into Shane, and I don't want to do that. And so Ken Russell was like, well, what if we make him a preacher? The irony here was that Perkins was an ordained minister, and he loved the idea. I actually think that plays better in the film, knowing knowing Perkins' real life sexuality. Because, I read Peter Shane as a closeted homosexual, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And no shade to Anthony Perkins. It's not, the closeted actor can't play anything other than gay.
Oh, yeah.
This character reads, I am repressing my sexuality. And sure, you could just read that as conventional sexuality, but it's giving so much misogyny, but also like a fascination with performance and even maybe dressing up. It's giving queer.
Very much so. And so I think this is actually a really smart change in the script. Sandler worked with Perkins going through the Bible looking for a bunch of passages that Shane would use to try and affect these women as opposed to psychology. So they just had changed all the psychobabble into religious babble.
Sure. Yeah.
John Laughlin had done a small part in Footloose and had a major role in season 3 of the television show The White Shadow, which I was unfamiliar with, but this was a basketball drama, but it was a precursor to realistic TV crime dramas like Hill Street Blues and My So-Called Life. So it actually has like a pretty significant place in the history of television.
Okay.
He came in and gave a reading that was apparently sensational, and he read with Kathleen Turner, and the chemistry was right, so they were like, cool, they got you. And John Laughlin, I'm not going to like sugarcoat this, has the least enviable role in the film.
Yes, I actually think that's a very polite way of putting it, because normally we would say, oh my God, boring protagonist syndrome. But as we said off the top, I think that's what this movie needs. I actually don't find him particularly boring. His storyline isn't as exciting as what's going on whenever we get to China, Joanna, or Peter, but it's a necessity for the film.
Absolutely. And his character and his performance is one of the things that worked better for me on a second and third viewing as opposed to my initial viewing where I was like, wow, this charisma vacuum. What is going on here?
Yeah.
And
I think he's hot.
Well, I got to say, too, because this comes out, as I said, 84, the same year as Brian De Palma's Body Double, starring Craig Wasson and Melanie Griffith.
Oh, I mean, let's compare him to Craig Wasson.
Well, and that's the thing, though. Like, because I like Body Double fine, but it's like, I walk away from that movie being like, oh, I wish Melanie Griffith was in this movie more and Craig Wasson was in this movie a lot less. But like
100%. Yeah.
Craig Wasson and John Laughlin very much occupied the same role in both movies. But I do think that Laughlin is more successful in this movie because of what this role is intended to operate as.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, everyone who read the script knew they were doing something outrageous and audacious. Something that wasn't going to be immediately accepted by the populace. Something that wasn't commercial friendly.
Right.
It was risky, dicey, and they might have generated some adverse reactions, which they did. The movie did.
Understated, sure. Yep.
So everyone who signed on to do the movie did it because they believed in the film. It wasn't just a job, but it was also, I mean, especially for Turner, in her words, an opportunity to work with Ken Russell, which was a big deal in 1984. And no one had any resistance to the content of the screenplay or objected to a single thing during filming.
Which is wild, folks. If you have not seen this movie, you are about to hear us talk through some absolutely wild shit.
Absolutely. But that being said, in a 2021 interview with Variety, Kathleen Turner said, Anthony Perkins was a nightmare. It was such a shame to watch. He would huff benzyl nitrate before every take, which is different than amyl nitrate, which is what we now call poppers. These benzyl nitrates were like one down, I guess, in the store where you buy them, but the effect is very much the same. And she said, Anthony would break into sweats, turn bright red, and start mumbling very fast and incoherently. Anything we rehearsed before the scene would completely go out the window, and Ken was hardly one to criticize with him because he was always drunk. And so, when asked by Variety how a budding actor navigated a set like that, Turner replied, and I quote, with difficulty, but Ken was a genius and I wanted to work with him.
That's a very polite response.
Yeah, it's very diplomatic. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I don't know, because this interview was held with her, after things like Me Too. It doesn't sound like there was any abuse going on the behind the scenes of this film, but it does sound like a very chaotic set. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't sound bad in terms of harmful, but it just doesn't sound like it was a good time.
And, it's one of those things where, again, not excusing it, but back in this day and age where you would have a kind of, quote unquote, genius director, and you took all of the weird idiosyncrasies that came with him.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. The score, by the way, the score for this movie is very bombastic.
Yes.
Composed by Rick Wakeman, who Ken Russell says is one of the greatest British pop artists who was great at symphonic rock. But the weird thing is, his score for Crimes of Passion is it's synthesizer heavy, and most of it is made up of melodies directly lifted from Czech composer Antonín Dvorak's New World Symphony.
Right.
So it's like an adaptation, but then we add guitar and synthesizer to it.
Yeah. Because it's the 80s.
Yeah. Now, onto the release. Okay. Crimes of Passion had a difficult road to release because of the ratings board, and it was originally given an X rating. And so New World head Robert Ramey, see previous episode on The Howling, because he was a big champion of that film, refused to release the film unless it was rated R. So Russell recut and submitted the film, which was again given an X rating. And at a certain point, the head of the ratings board called Sandler, like the screenwriter of the film, because he was also the producer, because he had that in his contract. And he said, like, look, you should get your studio to release this as an X rating and re-legitimize the X rating, because years before, X-rated films, so like Ken Russell's The Devils, Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange, and then Midnight Cowboy, these were considered respectable adult films, but in the intervening years, the X had taken on the connotation of pornography with pornographic theaters and triple X ratings and things like that.
Yeah, different kind of adult.
Exactly. So no one wanted to take the X rating because it was like, oh no, like it's not, like you could get away with it in the early 70s, but no longer in the early 80s. And because we had, like, you know, Ken Russell and Kathleen Turner and Anthony Perkins in a quote-unquote legitimate film.
It's respectable. Yeah,
the MPAA thought, hey, do this and we can bring back the X rating. Theaters will do it again. Like, you could be precedent setting for this. But
no studio's going to go for that.
No, especially when, like, New World, which again is like kind of has like Roger Corman in the back. They're like, no, we don't want to risk the money we're going to lose on that.
Yeah. It's just too risky. It's too dicey.
So the studio told Russell, look, you can keep cutting the film until it gets to an R, or
we don't release it.
Well, no, or we're going to cut it ourselves.
Oh, shit.
And so Russell was like, he cut it, butchering his film to get an R rating. And so, like, the original theatrical cut of this film, I believe, is an hour and 40 minutes long. And this version is, as far as I can tell, no longer available anywhere. You cannot find the R-rated version of this movie.
Good, because it doesn't sound like it was the cut anybody actually wanted.
No, and, you know, I looked at a list of, you know, what are the differences between the R-rated version and the uncut version, which is 107 minutes long, so 7 minutes longer. And it's not a simple case of, oh, this scene's missing, this shot's missing. It is a complete re-edit and then re-ADR, replacing sound and dialogue pieces in scenes.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say death by 1,000 paper cuts, but it sounds like we were just tweaking.
Yeah, and so I can't even tell you. I mean, look, I can tell you for sure. Yeah, the scene where she's, you know, fucking the cop with his nightstick, that is not in the theatrical cut at all. Like, that entire scene.
Yes, I heard that was one of the big things they had to just get rid of completely.
As is the silhouetted sex scene. But for a lot of other stuff, I mean, again, it is, I mean, even the opening scene where it's like, oh, okay, like you cut out these 2 lines of dialogue, the credits actually move a little bit at a faster frame rate and blah, blah, blah. So it's this really technical stuff where the entire movie, it's an entirely different film, basically.
No thanks.
Yeah, I know.
That just sounds so laborious, too. Like, you've already done cuts. Like, you've already edited the film once, and now you had to go back and just do it, sequence by sequence, scene by scene, maybe even frame by frame. And again, when you're not even just, like, taking out the visuals, you have to re-edit the sound as well. I'm just like, okay, like, how much money are you spending on recutting the film when you could just, again, release it as the X rating? Well, and how much as a creative do you start to resent or even hate this product because it's, you know, moving further and further away from your creative vision?
Exactly. So, nevertheless, we get this 100-minute long R-rated cut, which was released in theaters on October 19th, 1984, landing in the number 11 spot with $1.1 million.
Sounds worth it to me, guys.
Yeah. It ended its theatrical run with $2.9 million against a reported budget of $3 million. So,
okay. So it's a failure, but not an out-and-out bomb.
Not an out-and-out bomb. But here's the thing. It did apparently earn over $4 million in home video sales. And
I mean,
at a certain point, they did release the unrated cut on home video. And of course, that sold wildly more copies than the theatrical cut.
What a shocker.
It wasn't particularly well received by critics, but again, like, I think most reviews were for that theatrical cut. So I don't know how seriously I can take most of them, but still, we're looking at a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, whereas Letterboxd users, and again, I would assume these people have mostly seen the unrated cut.
Yes.
But they've given this a 3.6 out of 5, which is actually quite a bit higher than what I was expecting.
See, I was and I wasn't, because I kind of felt like the Letterboxd girlies were going to be the ones to get it, and I was pleasantly surprised to read reviews from both people I knew and then, the top rated reviews and stuff, people really do seem to understand what this film is trying to achieve. But yeah, like I went back and read Roger Ebert's review for this. I think he gave it 1.5 or 2.
Yeah.
And he basically just said Anthony Perkins is completely useless, which maybe some people will agree with, but he truly just didn't seem to engage with the film thematically. It felt like he didn't understand what the film was trying to accomplish at all. He just thought it was kind of lurid.
That is really bizarre. And I actually do agree that, like, Anthony Perkins' character feels the least connected to everything going on. Like, I think thematically he's connected, but narratively he's kind of like, what is he doing here?
He's often doing his own thing. Which
is kind of ironic, though, because honestly, you know how I said, like, Barry Stanley was going through 40 different versions of this script? When it started, he only had the China Blue Joanna character and the Reverend Shane character. He didn't even have John Laughlin's character in the script. And so I guess maybe that's what happened, is the more he gave to John Laughlin's character, the less he gave to Anthony Perkins' character. But even still, given that Anthony Perkins' character is introduced huffing poppers and, ogling a naked girl, this is a brave role for this man to take.
I mean, truly it does feel like he and Kathleen Turner are giving zero fucks in this film. In terms of, like, they are fully committed to these very... I was going to say unlikable. I don't know whether we find China Blue unlikable, but I do think that Peter is an almost unknowable character. Like, one of the things that I have taken away from my 2 watches of the film is I truly don't know anything about either one of them, because I feel like we just don't know how much to trust what they say. They're very unreliable.
Very much so. And whether that's a problem with the movie or not,
I don't think so.
We can discuss. Yeah, we can discuss.
I'm sorry, folks. I'm not going to be critical of this movie, except for that ending.
Yeah.
And, like, this movie to me is so fucking exciting. I will allow almost everything a pass.
Oh, it's one of the prettiest movies I've ever seen. I'll just say that right now.
I love the fact that lurid is one of the descriptors that comes up most often about this. It's like neon lit, lurid. And I'm just like, I hope you're not saying it like it's a bad thing, because she pretty, me likey.
Now, to complicate things just a little bit further, there's a theatrical cut that's an hour and 40 minutes. Okay. There is the unrated cut, the intended original theatrical cut, the unrated cut that is an hour and 47 minutes, which is available, like, that's the most widely available one.
That's what we're watching on Tubi.
Yes, exactly. Which, by the way, though, like, I had to search Crimes of Passion on Tubi, and, like, I had, like, 4 others show up. And it took me a minute for it to actually get it to show up. Which one? Yeah,
I was
know.
Like, wait, I guess Crimes of Passion is a pretty common term. It's a legal term as well, so not surprising. But yeah, I hope folks understood that we were talking about the Ken Russell one.
Yeah, but if you have the Arrow Blu-ray of this, there was also an unrated director's cut, which is an hour and 52 minutes. So
longer.
12 minutes longer than the theatrical cut, 5 minutes longer than the unrated cut. And I will say, if you're like, oh God, am I missing out on stuff? This is the one where it's like, oh, there's whole scenes that are taken out. And there are 2 scenes that are added in this unrated director's cut, both of them involving Annie Potts' character. And I will point them out when we get there. I don't think they're super vital. I mean, I get why they're added back into this director's cut, but I mean, I'll explain it when we get there. So,
okay, got it.
But Joe, what happens in this movie? Do you want to design your own custom miniature? Hero Forge offers fully customizable tabletop miniatures with dozens of fantasy species and thousands of parts to choose from, all within your browser. Working with materials like color plastic, acrylic standee, and bronze, and offering downloadable model files for users to 3D print their unique designs at home, Hero Forge is constantly expanding its catalog of customization options, adding new parts every week and major features like new species and custom posing on a regular basis. And as a listener of the Horror Queers podcast, you get a special deal. Use code HQ to get 5% off on all orders of physical miniatures. Visit HeroForge.com to start designing your custom miniature and dice today, and check back often. New content is added every week. And remember, use code HQ to get 5% off on all orders of physical miniatures. Not combinable with other sales or promotions.
Oh boy, brace yourselves. All right, so we open the movie as we are hearing, but not really seeing, men and women verbally fighting. So this is what's taking place over the credits. And then we are introduced to Mr. Bobby Grady, who is played by John Laughlin. It's a direct address, long take, static shot as he is just talking about his great marriage and how his sex life is totally fine. So he is the antithesis to everything that we just heard over the opening credits, which honestly plays like a battle of the sexes.
Well, I mean, it opens with a dirty joke about Adam and Eve and God referring to Eve's vagina as fishy smelling. And so immediately, I think that kind of sets the stage. And by the way, this joke is not in the original R-rated cut of this movie. But
okay.
I love the way this is shot, where we don't...
Yes. We see the other people around Bobby, but it's like almost out of focus because this is a divorced person's support group. And it's populated by men and women, and the women are very antagonistic towards the men.
Yes, but it's very chorus line-y, where we're basically looking at John Laughlin's Bobby, and then we see the wall behind him is a mirror. Yeah. And that is the only way we see the other members of this group therapy group is through this. So yeah, they're out of, as you said, they're out of focus. We don't look at any of the others except for his friend Donnie Hopper, played by Bruce Davis, a very young and attractive Bruce Davis.
So young, so hot. Although, ironically enough, he looks exactly the same, just younger. And then you realize, have I always been attracted to him?
100%.
I guess yes. Anyway, so this is a fucking fascinating way to open this movie. I agree with you. Stylistically, very interesting to look at. But this is also an approximation of what the entire movie is about. Like, it's about sex and desire and the differences between men and women, but especially in like open, non-marital relationships, because these women don't trust anything Bobby says. He seems very likable, kind of salt of the earth. He's too good looking to be a regular guy, but that's clearly what his role is in this film. And these women tear him to shreds. Oh, yeah. We've got lines like, well, I'd rather make love to a vibrator than your cock any day. Opening of this movie. Yes. It's very man-hating, which is appropriate-ish for the end of second wave feminism, which is what most of the 70s is. So this is a particular kind of woman. And of course, Bobby doesn't react well to this kind of woman, which is probably why he ends up with China Blue. Well, because we'll learn, I mean, kind of really in this outburst he has in this group therapy session, he's too defensive of the type of sex he has with his wife. And it's because, shocker, he has an unsatisfying sex life with his wife because they don't talk about sex. Well, and this is the big thing, right? Is that if you just ask him, he's going to tell you one thing and it's going to be very palatable. He's not going to make waves. He's not going to say anything too sensational. But if you scratch even just a little bit beneath the surface, then all of a sudden this really entitled, arrogant, but yes, defensive persona comes out where he's like, it's just really hard to get her to have sex with me. And she's always so cold and distant and it's never the right time. And you just think, oh shit, where did this come from? Yeah. I mean, he's clearly got something bubbling up beneath the surface, which is what the whole movie is about. Truly that. Okay, so we've introduced him. Let's cut to China Blue. So I'm going to call her China Blue when she is in the wig and the dress, and then we'll call her Joanna when she is not. Yes, but everyone, just in case, they are the same person. China Blue and Joanna. Yeah, it's basically a day and night kind of situation. Yeah, but what an intro. And if you were doubting the color of the movie in that opening scene, boy, oh boy, do we get it in this introduction. There we go. Yeah. So she is introduced wearing a sash and a crown. She is sitting on a throne with a man between her legs. And we are hearing that score. I call it patriotic because it feels like an almost anthem of sorts. Yes. And it's very flute heavy. And I think this is where we're getting a lot of it from. I mean, obviously, the dialogue in this scene is also very flute heavy as a euphemism. But yes, it is. But there's literally a lot of flute or wind instruments on the score as well. Right, yeah. So she is playing the flute for a John or a trick named Carl, who is played by John G. Scallon. And after a, quote, fucking incredible blowjob. Oh my God. China kicks Carl out because he wants to start talking about the end of his 12-year marriage. So once again, we've got this quote unquote perfect marriage that is revealed to be anything but when we're introduced to Bobby. And then we've got this other man who is visiting a sex worker in the aftermath of the dissolution of his marriage. So it's suggestive of, these relationships, this this perfect ideal of what marriage should be is breaking down, and it's forcing men to go and engage with people like China Blue.
Yes, and the second that any of her Johns even attempt at like any kind of emotional connection, China just shuts down. She's like, no,
get
you gotta
the fuck
go
out of here. Don't forget to leave the 50 on the dresser on your way out.
Yeah, and y'all, like, this movie does earn the X rating. Like, I think this would be even rated X today. Like, I mean, like, when she's talking about, obviously talking about his penis as a flute, and we see her rubbing the bulge in his jeans, and I was like, oh wow, that's like a full like hard on in his jeans right there. That is wild.
Yeah, and in case you didn't understand how the movie opened with her, he's eating her out on the throne as she's talking about. I mean, she's delivering this kind of...
It's Miss Liberty, like a Miss USA beauty pageant acceptance speech.
Exactly. But while she's receiving cunnilingus.
Yeah. And she will say later in the film, she is a really good sex worker. Like, she pulls out all the bells. Her production value is fantastic.
Oh my god. If she's competing in cam or the top 50.
Yes! Oh my god. I thought the exact same thing.
It feels like she's going the extra mile. And again, spoiler alert for how I feel about the end of the film, but I feel like this is actually not a different persona for Joanna because she seems to enjoy sex way too much to be like, oh, I couldn't emotionally connect with people. Like, sure, that part I get, but I just kind of hate that it feels like, oh, for her to enjoy sex, she has to be China Blue. And if she wants a real relationship, she can't be that person anymore.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we then cut to this slow 360-degree pan that reveal men jacking off. And you think initially that they're jacking off to her giving Carl this incredible blowjob and the sex act that we've seen. But no, we're actually in a completely different location. We're watching a naked woman played by Janice Reaney. She's dancing so unenthusiastically.
Oh yeah, she's bored. But the setup, because the setup for this looks like a stage play almost, where we have like all of these men behind these like a room divider almost with a window in it. But
it's a peep show.
It is a peep show, but it's like they're all in a room with these room dividers in a circle around this girl. I love that they all have trays at the bottom of the room dividers for their cum tissues.
Yeah, it's super nasty. This to me felt like a panopticon, like the idea of a prison that's organized in a circle so that the guards can look out and see all the prisoners at once. Yeah. Only in this case, it's a sex worker. But yeah, there's something obviously very voyeuristic about this because they're peering through these tiny little slots, and it partially feels like this way you wouldn't be able to see the other men and be distracted by them. Ooh.
It is, and this is where we meet, Reverend Peter Shane, played by Anthony Perkins, who is introduced, first shot of him in this movie, just sniffing poppers.
Aggressively sniffing poppers.
And the reason I also say this movie is brave, because I mean, yes, even though this is like, the year after Psycho 2, I know that Anthony Perkins was like, he was typecast after Psycho as like a very specific type of actor. And I feel like this movie metatextually plays with those expectations of him because he is peeping through so many holes in this movie.
Oh, that, and when we get to the end.
Yes.
It feels very self-aware of who Anthony Perkins is and what his legacy is as an actor. 100%.
Yeah.
So he is watching this woman dance, and then we get almost a flashing insert of her as a dead body. Like, she has been stabbed. We see blood underneath her, but we come to realize this is a hallucination, or this is something that he is fantasizing about.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, like, I feel like the eventual argument we'll make is that he is, again, repressed homosexual, internalized homophobia, taking it out on the opposite gender.
Yes, yeah. And he's also hiding this behind this veneer of religious respectability. Well, maybe not respectability, but religion. Sure.
Basically, he is pretending to be a preacher, or a reverend, but he is not a reverend. And he's very hypocritical, which China Blue will call him out on multiple times.
Yes, she will. So in this moment, though, when he imagines this woman's dead body, it scares him, I think. So he rushes out into the street. He's got a little apple box that he'll kind of climb up on. So he starts street preaching. And I do love that no one is taking him seriously. So people are actively laughing at him as they're walking around this red light district. But he seems like either a hypocrite at best or just completely out of his depth at worst.
Well, he also is coming across like he's on drugs. Like he is really out of it. I mean,
from what you described, this sounds a little method. You know, we're seeing the character do poppers and Anthony Perkins was doing poppers. So how much of this is an actual character versus just Anthony Perkins?
That's what I was thinking. Because I was also thinking, I was like, okay, a drug problem. So he was just huffing this benzyl nitrate all the time. I was like, I mean, again, I've used poppers. People have used poppers. They're more recreational, I guess, now or accepted now than they were back in the 80s. But still, I feel like a drug that you just do all the time. You
don't do it regularly. You do it like right when you want to have sex and kind of loosen up a little bit.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it was different times, 40 years ago. So.
Here's the thing. I just think
of the headache.
Have I ever told you? Maybe I've told you. I don't know if I've said it on the pod, but I used to work coat check at the gay bar.
Yes.
And people would frequently leave their poppers open, so I would get high secondhand. And the migraines that I would get from this shit, because it's basically shoe polish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's nasty stuff.
Well, because you can't. I mean, again, like I think you can't just go in and say I want poppers. You have to call them fragrances because if you ask for poppers, that's illegal. But I'm sorry, they are illegal in Canada though, still, right?
No, so we can't even get them here. We frequently have to ask our American brethren to smuggle them across the border for us.
Oh my God, that's wild!
I have some in my freezer right now.
In your freezer?
Thank you, Thank you former guest Justin Nordell. But all this to say, this character is eccentric. He's acting at an 11 almost every scene he's
all the time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But he sort of lacks focus in this early scene until we literally change the lighting scheme as China Blue walks down the sidewalk. She's almost illuminated by an otherworldly light, so he takes notice of her, and he will be fixated on her for the entire rest of the film.
Yes, and it's basically like, because he asks, do you recognize me or something like that? Mm-hmm. Because the implication here is that they have, like, he has been one of her Johns before, right?
I think so. Either that or he's seen her and she has never taken notice of him.
Yeah, but this is where, we get the iconic line where she says, "Sorry, I never forget a face, especially when I've sat on it."
Just, here's the thing, folks. There are so many quotable lines in this movie. And that's part of the real selling feature of it. That's why the scenes between these two actors crackle with electricity, is because the dialogue is so spitfire and witty and sexual, just so quotable. That's why the rest of the film can sometimes feel a little bit slow or even demure, because people are behaving like regular human beings, whereas these two feel like they're in some kind of stage play bitchery.
Well, and because Shane is talking faster than a Gilmore Girl for most of his for most of his scenes in this movie. But you're right. Like, I think Sandler's screenplay, it's full of so many puns and double entendres. It's so witty. And I saw people complaining, like some of the reviews at the time saying that, it's just, that's all it is. It's just made up of these puns and witticisms. And I was like, but it's good. They're good puns and they're good witticisms.
That's the thing. Like, I could totally accept if people said, this just doesn't connect with me. Like, I don't feel that these are proper characters. They don't speak like human beings or whatever. For me, it's just not a problem. Like, I'm enjoying it the whole fucking time.
I think it's a thing, too, where... And maybe it's jarring because all the scenes that are in the red light district, any scene that is neon lit, like there is a heightened reality aspect to it.
Oh, yes.
But that is not the case in any of the scenes involving Bobby and his wife, Amy, or at least the ones that take place in suburbia or their home, or even when we're at Joanna's home. But again, that's so intentional to me.
Yeah. And I feel like that's what's really obvious, but it feels like it went over a lot of people's heads at the time. Like, people could not stop focusing on the sex or the sexual implications. Mm-hmm. And as a result, they missed what those scenes are actually commenting on and how they work in contrast to the very conventional, very sort of not desaturated, but more muted, regular, everyday scenes, costumes, performances.
Yeah. And I will say, again, like watching this a second or third time, like I picked up on so many more of Sandler's lines. I mean, I just think it's an impossible film to fully absorb on a first time viewing.
It feels like sensory overload a lot of the time, too.
That's, great way to put it.
Okay, so yeah, they kind of spar. This is their first like real big scene where he says, "Yeah, do you want me to save you?" And she calls him a shithead and walks off.
Oh yeah, save your soul, whore. Save your money, shithead.
Yeah. Okay, so we cut back to Bobby. He scares his employee, Jerry, who is played by Stephen Lee. We discover that Bobby works at an electronics store, and this is where he has gone back to after this divorce group meeting with his friend, Donnie Hopper. And we discover that Donnie is the reason that they were at that group, because Donnie is getting a divorce from his wife, and we think maybe we might be able to get back to where we were because they're starting to have conversation again. So it's the suggestion that, well, Bobby's relationship is still better than Donnie's because at least he's not getting divorced, but it does feel like every marriage in this movie is in jeopardy.
Very much so. Mm-hmm.
So Bobby does end up inviting him to the barbecue. He's kind of like, oh, you're making progress with your ex. You know, just because you're separated, maybe things will work out. Why don't you come to the barbecue? She'll be there. Put that in your back pocket. So elsewhere, we have China literally running away. And I think we're meant to assume that she's running away from Peter like it's an extension of the previous scene. But then we end up seeing her run, you know, through a restaurant, up the back stairs of, you think it's an apartment, but it's actually a motel where she rents a room.
I will say, though, the score kicks in here with some amazing electric. This is my favorite piece of score, and I was like, oh my god, it's the fucking like quote unquote rape scene of the movie. But yes,
yeah. So she is sexually assaulted by Frank, who is played by Pat McNamara, and we see that this is in the flashing neon lights, and Peter is just watching. It doesn't even seem like he sees anything from the street level, but this is quickly revealed to be a rape fantasy.
Yeah.
And part of the reason that we do this is because China has fed Frank this totally bullshit story about how her father sexually assaulted her when she was younger. And this is the first of many different Joker-esque backstories we will get for who and how China became who she is.
I'm so glad you said Joker-esque, because you're right. Because, we never
it
really
changes
know.
Every single time she tells it.
Every single time. And actually, because you know, I mean, the first time I watched this, I was very much like, okay, she's running from Peter Shane. That's what's going on. But it's interesting because when she walks into the room before Frank attacks her, quote unquote attacks her, she locks the door and her accent has changed. She's like, who's there? Yeah. Like, it's very Harley Quinn-y, actually.
It's very Brooklyn, you know, very fake Brooklyn Coda.
But I love
what
it because,
you want.
Because after the, I'm going to say it's a sex scene because it is very consensual. It's not rape. But, he's asking her about, when her dad molested her and all this stuff. And she doesn't remember it. And she's like, oh, yeah, I forgot.
And he seems suspicious, but then she's like, no, that's right. Yeah.
Well, he seems almost hurt when he's like, oh, like this thing that I thought really bonded us together as sex worker and trick, like, oh, it might be a lie, and so she has to keep it going. But this is the only like sloppy moment from Joanna, and I'm sorry, from China Blue in this movie, because you're like, she should be on top of this shit. She should be remembering what she tells all of her Johns.
Right. Keep a little notebook that says, oh, right, this is the character I play with this person.
There's also an interesting directorial choice because during the quote unquote rape scene, we have these insert shots of like Kama Sutra like drawings of her with like people with like giant penises and things like that. Like it's funny because the commentary for this movie does have both Sandler and Russell, because I didn't have a lot of stuff from Russell in my production history. And
okay.
I watched most of it. I watched about half of it. And it's so funny when these insert shots come up. He goes, oh, yeah, there's those things. I guess we had a reason for putting those in there.
I mean, here's the thing. When we finally get the reveal of Joanna's real apartment, because she doesn't actually live here, this is just kind of her sexy studio, for lack of a better term, we will see that she has actually outfitted it with all sorts of erotica and erotic art. To be honest, it was giving me The Handmaiden.
Well, a little, because it's all Asian erotica.
It is that too, which feels slightly uncomfortable considering that there are no racialized people in this film at all, but it tells me, if anything, it connoted a sense of taste from, like, this is the bridge between Joanna and China Blue, is that they are both interested in sex, but we're looking at it as something tasteful, but maybe also a little exotic.
Well, because Joanna doesn't, it's not that she doesn't think she deserves the sex as Joanna, but it's like she can't enjoy that. Like, she has to be another person to get what she's wanting out of sex. And yeah, I mean, I guess you could say maybe it's a little bit of a cultural appropriation thing, because she will give Bobby that quote later about how, like, oh, you know, over there, if you, like, you're not allowed to have sex with someone who knows any secret about you or whatever. And like, and so she idolizes that aspect of sexuality. So in a way, it's cultural appropriation, but I could also see it as being like,
it's almost philosophical appropriation.
Yeah.
Like, I like that it resonated with me as an individual and how I approach sex acts, and therefore I'm going to make it my entire fucking life, apparently.
Yeah, basically.
I mean, I do like the fact that we get confirmation she has a regular day job, and she's apparently quite good at it.
Oh, sure. But when Bobby asked her, like, when do you sleep? And she's like, Valentine's Day. I was like, yeah, I don't think you sleep ever. So, like...
Girl, how are you not more tired? Working all day, working all night.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's cut to what I consider to be the most kill-by-kill level hilarious moment in this movie. We see this hilarious family photograph at Bobby's house. So he's shirtless. He's leaning against a push mower in the front yard of their house as wife Amy, who is, yes, Annie Potts, she's caressing his arm. And then we've got the boy child sitting there with a football, and the girl's just sitting on the ground looking at the camera. And this is meant to be some kind of family photo album that you would put on the fridge, or in this case, we've hung on the wall, framed. And it's completely centered around Bobby and makes him the object of sexual affection, the man of the house, and so on. And you think, well, there's your fucking problem, Bobby.
Yeah, I mean, here the scenes between Bobby and Amy, I think, are
God, they're so uncomfortable.
They're so uncomfortable, genuinely uncomfortable, and like. And again, like, we're very much meant to juxtapose this mundane existence they have with the quote-unquote exciting existence that someone like China Blue or even Peter Shane has over on the Red Light District. But like, these scenes are torturous. And on a first viewing, I was so uncomfortable watching these scenes. And I think I really absorbed them more in a second viewing, where I was like, oh yeah, like, I mean, these are meant to be uncomfortable. These are meant to be so plain by comparison. And it's so sad to look at someone like a character like Amy, who is clearly not into her husband at all, and he is just not picking it up.
I will say, on the first watch, and folks, we apologize for saying this repeatedly, but again, it truly is a film that benefits from rewatches. Rewatchability is a big factor for this movie. The first time I watched it, I thought, I don't know why she's so cold to him. You know, he's hot. Like, he's dangerously hot for 1984. He's got this great physique, which we will get to see later. And he doesn't seem like a bad husband, but on a second watch, I was like, this is a man-child, and I'm exhausted by his behavior.
It seems like, yeah, like when they had kids, like Amy had to grow up, and Bobby did not.
Yeah, he just stagnated. He's still the exact same person he used to be. He wants to be fun dad. Even this moment, you know, okay, so he arrives, and he brings her a box of chocolate, and she complains immediately, well, I'm on a diet. And then she opens it up, and he's actually filled it with vegetables. And you think, oh, that's kind of fun. That's playful. And then you realize, this is shit. Like, these people are bad for each other.
Yeah.
They're not communicating. You know, he communicates in things like this, jokes, or he'll make, you know, passive aggressive comments, and then she responds with silences, or she's very stern and naggy, and you just think, you two are bringing out the absolute worst qualities in each other.
And that's the thing. Like, you know, it sounds like we're coming down hard on Bobby, but Amy is not guiltless in this relationship.
No.
Like,
she doesn't communicate.
Well, she is sexually repressed, definitely. Like, she is so, and we'll find this out later, but she's very uncomfortable when it comes to talking about sex. I mean,
oh my God. The number of times that she tries to dodge that fucking question, I just said, girl, you need to learn how to talk about it.
And so
it's your marriage.
And so, and again, are these people meant for each other? Probably not.
No.
However, their lack of communication is not doing either one of them any favors.
No, they are phoning this in, and they've learned to hate each other.
Yeah.
Well, Amy, I think, has learned to hate him and almost resent him. And he is like a puppy, where he just can't accept that she doesn't like him, that it's not the way it used to be. And he won't stop badgering her about it. And you just think, you're on two different levels here. Neither one of you is actually meeting the other one where they need you to be.
And if it weren't for the ending of this movie, and again, that messaging that we're getting that we're kind of not a fan of, like, I would think, okay, well, yeah, it's a gay screenwriter kind kind of almost making a satire of what he views in heterosexual relationships. Yeah, exactly. and honestly, I think I thought that for most of the movie, because I mean,
it still applies up until the ending, for
sure.
Because
I do think this movie is a social satire of sorts. And so
yes,
maybe it's surface level, but I'm like, oh yeah, this is a gay man satirizing what he views a heterosexual relationship to be. It's boring as fuck. They don't communicate. They're not into sex, blah, 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 which of course is a broad generalization. But
yeah.
As a satire, I think it's funny.
I do too. And folks, if you think that we're not really reading this correctly, like, we literally get a joke where he asks if she's on her period.
Oh, yeah.
Which any self-respecting man should know, you never ever ask a woman that.
Yeah, that's like in the same field as asking a woman if she's pregnant.
Right. Yeah.
When are you due?
Just don't.
Yeah, don't do it.
So Amy ends up putting their two kids, Jimmy and Lisa, who are played by Seth Wagerman and Christina Lange, to bed. And we have talked about money. Money is a big issue right now. So initially you think, oh, well, that's the problem. It's that he's not making enough money. She's not satisfied. There's talk about a hot tub that they just can't afford and so on. But he ends up calling someone for a nighttime surveillance gig. And this is going to be for extra money. So your comparison to De Palma's
Body Double.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's spot on, because it feels like, oh, isn't that how that movie kind of starts? You know, I move into a friend's house in the Hollywood Hills because my girlfriend kicks me out because we're fighting. And then all of a sudden I get intoxicated with this hot blonde.
Yep, very much so.
Almost the same film. Yeah. So he ends up signing up for this. I will say there's a moment right after he takes the gig, and it feels like a kind of detente where they're sitting, they're watching television, he and Amy, and he lays his head in her lap. And initially I thought, oh, this is a nice moment for them. Maybe they're not terrible together. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, oh, it's more childlike.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's a little boy, and she has to mother him.
Yeah, I mean, there is just resentment radiating off of Amy in all of her scenes.
Doesn't help that he says things like, maybe I should do my magic trick at the barbecue.
Oh my God.
And then when we find out what the magic trick is, you're just like, oh, Christ.
I'm going to tell you right now, yeah, I'm on Amy's side
funny,
with that guy.
But also, no, I'm 100%. Are you a child or are you a man? Grow the fuck up.
The magic trick is probably funny, maybe the first time you see it, and then if he does that at every single social gathering you have, I would also divorce him.
Fair, yeah. Honestly,
this is also, again, this is the weirdest. To me, the weirdest. Maybe product placement isn't the right word, but when they turn on the TV, we get clips from a music video of a song called "It's a Lovely Wife" that is composed by Rick Wakeman, the film's composer, based on, again, that New World Symphony by Antonin Dvorak. But like, it's a music video where this little girl screaming into a birdcage. The birdcage goes flying. There's a bride and a groom. They all jump into a pool, and it also seems to be an ad for couples coffins. The bride.
It's called "Marriage Is Death." Basically, so it thematically works. This actually was the music video that was aired on MTV to help promote the film, and in the film's promotional packet, Ken Russell directed this music video. I like it. It feels actually very reflective of the time period.
Very much so, and the bride is his actual daughter.
Oh, cute.
But again, like it's like we have this like intermission of the movie to watch this music video, which is only here, well, A, as a promotional thing, but it does tie in somewhat thematically with what Bobby and Amy are experiencing.
Oh, I think you can take out the word somewhat. I think this is a direct commentary. Again, this feels like a mini version of what the entire movie is about.
Right. Yeah, we're just condensing it into a brief 90-second clip.
Yeah, a little musical interlude, if you will.
Interlude! That's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay, so Bobby ends up meeting with businessman Lou Bateman, who is played by Norman Burton. This is the gig that he has signed up for, the surveillance gig. And this is where we discover who China Blue really is. So she is Joanna during the day, and she works at this fashion house. And Lou Bateman has hired Bobby because he suspects that Joanna has actually been stealing, or selling rather, patents of their work to a competitor, and that's why his sales are down. None of this really matters, except to get these two characters into each other's orbit.
Right. Okay, the only reason this guy suspects Joanna as being the thief, instead of any of the men in the office, he judges her for being divorced and alone and having no boyfriends. She is ambitious and never stops working and is never quite satisfied. And she turns to ice around people with penises. So she is a man-hating career woman, and that makes her suspicious.
Automatically. Yeah. Yep. Yep. He literally says, I don't trust anyone who works that hard, as if to suggest that all of his male employees are essentially slackers.
Basically, yeah.
It's also wild. He gives Bobby a gun so that he can track her down. Sir, you're talking about corporate espionage. Yeah. I don't think we need to introduce a firearm into the proceedings.
Even if she is like selling these things, does that warrant a firearm?
No, absolutely. It does not. Anyway, so Bobby trails her to her house in the burbs.
Oh, her very white house in her very white neighborhood.
Indeed. This is palatial, though. It reminded me of what property values must have been like back in the early 80s, because
you're supposed to be thinking, well, oh my God, she has this wonderful setup, a nice day job. Why would she go out and degrade herself as China Blue?
Yeah, which is, of course, where she heads as soon as dark falls. So she comes out. She's, I like that she's mostly covered up, so you can't immediately tell she's got the wig on and the dress and that kind of stuff. But eventually we will realize that's exactly what she's doing, because we are recording her on camera. So we see the black and white footage as Bobby basically gets her walking the streets. And this is where we actually see her interacting with Reverend Peter. So she grabs him and takes him upstairs. I do enjoy the wordplay of I grabbed him by the organ.
Oh, I mean, again, all the wordplay in this movie.
So we cut upstairs and we see China offering Peter another false backstory. I don't remember exactly what she says, but it's completely different from what she offered Frank earlier. Yeah. And then they trade a bunch of barbs. So she does that fit as a fiddle and ready for cock. And he responds by saying things like, whores and metaphors don't mix.
Also, you're wearing your anguish like a breakaway chastity belt.
This script fucking sings.
Like, another good line from Shane. I deal in truth. I'm bringing you something greater than a hard-on, assuming you consider truth to be greater than a hard-on. Like, what? You can't, I was like, you can't write this dialogue, but you can, clearly.
This big mouth coos. Oh. The Reverend prays to be saved from this big mouth coos with the motor driven ass.
Oh my God. I speak not in vain, but this little bitch provokes me so. Like, all of his because, and here's the thing. He, as I said, faster than a Gilmore Girl is the speed at which Anthony Perkins speaks his lines. And so it's easy to miss some of these Bible verses in scare quotes, but
oh babies, turn on those subtitles and you will not miss a gem.
Turn them on for sure, because he has some of the most quotable, admittedly offensive lines in this movie, but still.
Yeah, he is so sexually repressed. He is so condemnatory of her, and it's basically just seemingly because she likes sex.
Well, but she still thinks, because she's like, okay, she sees that he's repressed. She's like, okay, what you really want is me. So she's trying to figure out what performance he wants from her. And she's not understanding, no, he's really trying to save you. And if he can't, he's going to kill you.
Well, he thinks he's trying to save her because he can't accept that he might actually have feelings for her or lust for her, right? Or the feelings of lust drive him to say, I need to get rid of you in one way or another. I'm going to save your soul, or I'm going to send your soul to heaven or hell.
Yeah.
So this is where we get a glimpse inside the bag that he carries around. Trace, what did you think of his bag of toys, which includes a beat me, eat me licorice whip?
Oh my God. And a tit pacifier. And he says a pretty kitty, which I'm assuming is a foam rubber pussy. An auto suck that swallows.
Oh boy.
And then, of course, yes, we get the bladed vibrator, which, honestly, I'm not going to lie, does not look as sharp as it needs to be.
I wanted it to be sharper as well, but I think it's just because, as you said in our outro last week, we're really thinking about knife plus heart.
That or 7, but I think if you view this as more of a wooden stake instead of a knife, that it does work. I love, again, this is easy to miss, but whenever China Blue opens it, when she gets to the bladed vibrator, she goes, oh my God, and then she looks at a reverend and goes, oh, excuse me, oh God.
So good.
But yeah, so she finds this bladed vibrator, and this is when she's kind of like, oh, like...
yeah, you're not normal. You're not okay. So she basically is not going to perform for him anymore. She does kick him out after this, and he sits outside the house and pledges to cut off her tits, saying things like, the snatch can't fool me.
Oh my God, the snatch can't fool me, and yeah, I'll cut off her little tits. Oh, for me, it's the... I will walk within my house with a perfect heart, and I will set no wicked things before mine eyes, not even the stupid douchebag who's luring me into her rotten spell.
It's high and low, right?
Like, and maybe that's the thing is like there's an element of camp to this. You said John Waters at the top of the episode, and honestly, I do see it. And part of that too plays into the artificiality of the sets in this movie.
Right. Yeah, because every time we see this boudoir of hers, it feels like a stage production. I could actually totally imagine this being performed as either a play or some kind of musical. I think it would work. But it's because this whole movie is playing with artifice, but also performance, right? It's performativity because China Blue doesn't exist. She's Joanna under another persona. And then, of course, this Reverend Peter, he's not a real Reverend. We don't know anything about him or what his deal is. So everybody is putting on a performance. It's all an act.
Well, and again, I actually, so before she even kicks Reverend out, Bobby is on the fire escape, like listening through the window. And there's a moment where China, you know, she opens the window and she leans out. It almost feels like we're doing Romeo and Juliet here. And again, the fact that the set does look very like stage production adds to that effect for me.
Yes. Yeah. I love it. I love that artifice where if you told me, oh, it wasn't supposed to be that way, I'd say, well, it still works if it does. But I have to imagine that they built this to give that sense of artificiality.
Yeah.
Like it feels deliberate because it's so constructed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we kind of end this section with a really good visual contrast. So we see Joanna lying solo in this enormous bed in her real house. And then we contrast that with the empty silence of Bobby climbing into the ice cold marriage bed where he and Amy don't speak to each other, even though they're both clearly still awake. And the silence is just everything. And
Amy practically recoils at Bobby's touch. Like, she's awake, but doesn't let him know. But, like, she like, flinches almost when he puts his arm on her.
Yeah. Which, I'm sorry, if you don't want to be touched by the person that you're married to, that's not a fight. This is, we need to spend some time apart.
Either that or you need to go into couples therapy and do some major work to figure that out.
I mean, a conversation would be helpful.
Yeah. Bare minimum, a conversation.
Yep. Okay, so we resolved this case with Mr. Bateman very easily. It turns out the culprit is not Joanna. It's some guy named Bill, who is a long-term employee. And I said, it kind of doesn't matter except to introduce Bobby into Joanna's orbit. But that's not entirely true, because I do think that Bobby's reaction to this. So Mr. Bateman is aghast that this man who has worked for him for so long could possibly betray him. And we hear this uncertain explanation of Phil saying, I don't even really know why I did it, but I'm really sorry. And Bobby argues that Mr. Bateman should forgive him. And we get this line, I don't know what's wrong or right. And this idea that people think it has to be black and white, or that
it's a binary.
Yeah. Like, and that's not the way that the real world works. And I think the movie also supports this assertion that there isn't good, there isn't bad, there isn't wrong, there isn't right. Like, it's all stuff in the middle, and you need to be more open-minded and try to find a way to connect to people, to forgive people, to move on from things.
Well, and even the film's handling of sex work, I think, is very progressive up until the mixed messaging of that final scene.
I fucking hate it.
I know.
So anyway, I also like that Bobby he never reveals what he discovered about Joanna. So he doesn't say what she does at night because, you know what? It's none of Mr. Bateman's business. Mm-hmm. And he does show up at her door, but we should note he shows up at the boudoir door because he doesn't go to her house just yet. So he kind of invites himself in, and he basically says, I'm here to hire you for the night. Like, I've got $50. I'd like to come in.
I do love her little joke. Are you desperate or that horny? I'm married. Oh, that desperate and that horny.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But when he starts to interrogate who is she, because obviously she's a woman of mystery, you know, how does she work at this fashion house during the day and then she does sex work at night? It breaks his brain. So he starts asking her who she is. And instead of giving him a backstory, she says, it's not a prom date, sweetie. I'm a hooker, you're a trick. Why ruin a perfect relationship?
Exactly. And so it also, I mean, because it's interesting to see her work with a new client because she's immediately trying to figure out, okay, what is the fantasy that you're looking for? Exactly. So she settles on, this China Blue Airlines flight attendant type thing. And
after giving him a Quaalude to just kind of settle
oh my God. Some lewds.
Quaalude.
Yeah, that's how you know this is in the 80s.
Yes.
But yeah, and so I also do wonder too if the flight attendant gag is kind of her go-to for married men who are out for the first time, because he does say it's my first time.
Yeah, I mean, it's very sexy. We have not talked about Kathleen Turner enough in this episode. Mm-hmm. She's fucking great in terms of delivering all these lines, in making a pretty stark contrast between Joanna and China Blue.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, in some ways, I wish that she had different wigs and she had more variety in the outfits. This is clearly a kind of one signature look persona.
Right.
But she is so convincing in the sex work. Like, I truly do believe that China Blue loves administering pleasure, finding out what makes people tick, and giving it to them. Like, she's a sex worker who legitimately enjoys her job.
Yeah, she would be a good psychologist, to be honest. But it is. I thought the same thing about the wig, where I was like, I just feel like I mean, again, because she goes on and on about how she has to be good at her job to be a $50 sex worker, and
which is wild. 1984 called.
Yeah, exactly. But
all I could think of was Showgirls, where it's like, oh, sweetie, you've got low self-esteem because you're a way better fuck than $50.
But I thought about it. I was like, okay, well, maybe it's because like the wig really is like that is China Blue, like, and so if she was just to use a different wig, it may not be China Blue as well. So to avoid, I don't know, I'm just putting all this on her.
It's a visual signature that helps the audience to always recognize who she is. But yeah, I get the impression it's I put the wig on and I become China Blue.
Exactly, and it would be this wig, whereas adding in a bunch of different wigs would like add too many ingredients to the pot, I guess. I don't know. She wants to keep it one personality and two personality, not...
It's not a heist movie. She doesn't need to continually redefine herself.
Yeah, she's not a spy.
Okay, let's talk about the sex scene, because I can't tell if this is meant to be hot, because honestly, he looks like he's about to fall asleep when she's going down on him and taking his clothes off. And then we see their sex in silhouette. And sure, it's, 5 different positions, but it looks boring.
Well, it starts off that way. Like, so, hey, y'all, this sex scene is very long. It goes on forever. Minutes.
My notes. It goes on forever, all caps.
Obviously, this was heavily trimmed down in the R-rated theatrical version of this movie. But yeah, like, it starts off, the score is even, it's that flute-heavy sensuality, and then the guitar kicks in, and then it gets into more colorful portrayals of sex with, like, different positions and things like that. And it's all done through a silhouette, through this, like, kind of sheer curtain type thing. Again, very hyper-stylized, like neon pink and blue all over the place. I wouldn't say I found this particularly hot, but only because there is a sense of artificiality to it too. So where I'm like kind of like...
It again feels like a performance. Like, it doesn't feel real to me. And I think we're supposed to contrast this with the quote unquote legitimate sex that they have with the silk sheets later on.
Exactly. Oh, maybe that is it. Because I mean, this is supposed to be kind of life changing for Bob. Like, this is the first, first good sex for sure. And possibly the first sex he's had in months or years even. But maybe that's the thing, is like, even artifice is satisfying to him because it's better than nothing in this moment.
Right. Yeah. Okay, you know what? I can accept all of that. Okay. So one final piece about this, we do end up tracking over to a little viewfinder on the wall. Not sure how Peter got this, or maybe this was always here and there was some voyeuristic, enterprising person who runs this motel.
I mean, either way, he's in the room next to them, basically.
Yes, watching the sex.
Through a peephole, just like Norman Bates.
Yes. Yeah. Is he stroking the vibrator here, or is that the next time?
I can't remember, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So immediately after sex, clearly this was good sex for both of them. There was a connection implied. And then when he goes to the shower, she attacks him verbally because it's like, oh, you couldn't wait to wash me off of you. And this is clearly her having some kind of almost panic attack where she realizes, I felt feelings. This isn't, I want this John to get out of here. It's, hey, this guy was actually good. I found him attractive. We connected. The sex was great. So I wrote in my notes, she's clearly protecting herself because she felt something. And this is when Bobby says, I thought fucking was supposed to bring people together, not drive them apart. And in some ways, this to me feels so naive and idealistic, but I do also think that this is a soft thesis of the film, right? It's,
very much so.
Why does sex have to be different from intimacy? Why does sex outside of a marriage have to be different from sex within? And can you find a way to bring it all together?
Yeah, and that's what something he'll tell Amy later, where he's like, I think that like sex is a great way to show someone how you feel or something like that. And
right.
And I think you're right. I think that ultimately is the thesis of the film, where it's kind of like, hey, sex doesn't have to, like, sex can be all of these different things for everybody. It doesn't have to be one thing for somebody, but I guess it's best if you find someone where sex acts the same for both of you.
Yes, yeah, because when he does have that sex conversation with Amy, he's very candid and I think right about saying, I thought that we were trying to get to a place where we were both enjoying it, where we were both having fun. Our pleasure was mutually important. And Amy can't even talk about it. She doesn't want to even hear that. And she says, sex was just always something that I did because you seem like you needed it.
Which, don't want to hear that.
Oh boy, that to me was, this is over.
Yeah.
You don't even want to think of me sexually. We've got to end this.
But then I'm like, you might want to go find someone who's like not into sex, I guess, Amy, because you don't seem to be. But again, like, the film doesn't have time to interrogate Amy's internal life and why she feels like this about sex. And I feel like if this was more of a 4-hander instead of a 3-hander, we'd be able to do that. But
yeah, because to be clear, it's not as if Amy is asexual. It's not that she's disinterested in sex. It very much seems to be she doesn't have a sexual interest in Bobby, but it's because of where they're at in their marriage and how long they've been together. And
but there is a prudishness to her. And again, a genuine uncomfortability when it comes to discussing sex. And I'm like, okay, there has to, I mean, not to psychoanalyze her too much, like maybe there isn't just one reason for why she's like this.
What, you don't want to diagnose this fictional character?
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I'm saying is, there is a character here to dive into. The film just opts not to.
Yeah, and it's a shame because I was really excited to see Annie Potts. And again, she's doing good with what she has, but she is not a main character. She's a supporting character through and through.
And she's miserable in every single scene she's in.
Wow, she's a very unhappy woman.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sidebar about the sex scene. We do get to see his butt as he's putting his clothes back on before he gets tossed out into the street. Good butt.
Yeah, good butt. I will say, I mean, for as salacious as this movie is, I don't. Oh, and I guess we do get to see full frontal female in the peep show area.
We do, yeah. But it feels sleazy there. Like, it's a very different kind of sex.
Yeah, but we don't get to see any penises in this movie, which is a little bit surprising.
Yeah, folks, let us know. In the Devils, do we get to see some peen? Anybody hanging dong in the Devils?
It's probably not sexual.
Maybe. Okay, so after Bobby is gone, I love this. Peter just climbs through the fucking window. Mm-hmm. Like, you mentioned Romeo and Juliet earlier. I just thought, sir, the balcony is not for you. You may go through the front door like everyone else.
I do love that she's like a flat rate $50 sex worker. I'm like, oh, you don't like adjust your rate for like the effort you're putting into this?
I mean, where are all these costumes coming from?
Right?
Her budget on costuming alone must be outrageous. Because here we see her put on a sexy nun outfit. I love her line, if you're a minister, I'm Snow White.
Oh my God. And then she's jumping on this mattress in her nun outfit. It's so funny.
It's very fun and playful, and it's enjoyable because we understand that Peter is so closed off sexually. Mm-hmm. He thinks that she is disgusting and salacious, and she's like, well, if you truly feel that way, then I'm going to make fun of you about this.
And that's what she does. She puts on this performance of a nun who is, again, very sexually
interested?
Guilty. Well, she's sexually, like, she feels guilt over her sexuality. She starts crying because she thinks, this reverend wants to see someone in his field who is sexual but, like, struggling with it and blah, blah, blah. And then she stops the facade, and so her crying morphs into laughter, and she mocks it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love a good, you think I'm doing one thing and I'm actually doing another thing. Usually we use this for like a vampire movie or something, right? And oh, little girl, are you okay? Oh, I'm so ha ha ha. I'm not going to bite you.
She calls him out on his hypocrisy. She says, I can play your goddamn game as well as you can, because she is aware that he's not really a minister or a reverend. And she says, but I don't use religion to pump myself up. And I love that. Again, we don't really dive too much into it, but I like that it's said nonetheless.
I do kind of like, I mean, kudos to Anthony Perkins for taking the character in this direction. I think, a sad sack shoe salesman with a vendetta against women could obviously have worked, but I do like this sly interrogation of part of the reason that he gets away with all of this, Peter does, is because he has put on the guise of respectability so he can walk through these spaces and people will either listen to him or they will cast him a wide berth because they don't want to be involved in his religiosity. Anyway, things get a little scary. He reads an uncomfortable sexual poem to her, and she doesn't like it, and then he chases her out into the street. And Bobby has not, in fact, actually left. He's just been waiting to see what happens, so he tries to go and protect her, because that's who Bobby is. He's a knight in shining armor, at least in his own mind. And I love that Peter just smacks him to the ground and walks away like... Bobby, you're not a hero.
Yeah, but at the same time, China is flattered over being fought over. And I was kind of like, girl, like, raise your standards.
Maybe we should have seen the end coming from a scene like this, where you just think, girl, you don't need to be impressed with a guy because he is low-key stalking you, but not as aggressively as the other guy who is outright stalking you.
Yeah, and maybe that's the thing, is like we see so much progressiveness in the China Blue character that we as the audience, we want to believe that the film views her as this as well, or that she is really this character. But I think we have to remember that she also is Joanna. Like, China Blue isn't the real Joanna. Joanna's still in there.
Yeah. I
know.
The more we get into this, the more I think I wish we could have unpacked who Joanna actually is, because we never really get to know much about where she came from apart from her profession. And I think that would have made me slightly more comfortable with the ending if she truly did just want a conventional relationship. But it feels like the film ultimately passes judgment on China Blue, or the persona of China Blue, as, oh, this is something she didn't actually want. She had to develop this because she couldn't reconcile her sexual urges with regular woman/wifely desires.
Maybe it's not meant to be a fully happy ending where it's like, their relationship is then primarily based on sex and it's still missing the intimacy component to it. So that's what Sandler was looking at the culture at the time that he wanted to talk about with this movie. But the movie doesn't...
We have to end the movie before we can really start to get into that too much.
Exactly that.
And of course, folks, we are recognizing, like, 84, this is a pretty turbulent time period. So you've already mentioned AIDS. 80s is really the rise of not just like Reaganism and conservatism, but this is when America has this marital crisis because people start to get divorced by the fuck ton. So it makes sense that this movie is really interested in all of these ideas.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, Trace, let's talk about the barbecue. We will come back and forth to the scene a couple of times, but I will say the whole discussion about the slut from Ohio State is very funny to me.
It's very funny. I will say, too, there is one of these director's cut scenes before the barbecue. So it's not a big one, but basically Bobby is having breakfast with his family and Amy pours maple syrup on his pancakes. And he makes a big deal about how he hates maple syrup. And and then there's a part where the kid, the son, is doing this the science project, and he asks what strontium-90 is. And Bobby tries to answer, but Amy answers first. And Bobby's like, well, I was going to answer. And she was like, do you know what strontium-90 is? And he didn't know the answer. So she kind of mocks him of being like, well, why the fuck would you try to help your kid with his homework when I'm the one here doing all the work? So it's just another example of how Amy really resents him, doesn't really know him that well, and openly mocks him and I guess his masculinity in front of the children.
Oh, no, not mocking my masculinity. Oh, God.
Yeah.
The reason I gasped is because there is a dropped line later on where he talks about maple syrup or her trying to poison him with sugar.
Oh!
And I never understood what it was referring to because we didn't see any maple syrup.
Well, there you go. That's what it is.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, so we've got a couple of people over at the barbecue. It's basically, I think, 3 or 4 couples in total, including Bobby and Amy. And we're just joking. We're having a good time. But we can see that Hopper has mistaken that just because he's talking to his ex that she wants to maybe reconcile or think about getting back together. She clearly has no interest in that.
No.
And then Bobby turns into a jokester. So he almost regresses back into juvenile behavior. Not almost. He fully does. He dangles a hot dog out of his pants with mustard on it. This actually gets on Amy. I thought it was funny. This, to me, was a very satirical music cue because we can hear the It's a Lovely Life song playing over this as if to say, this is a farce. This marriage is death. Like, we're making fun of it.
And this, this was kind of funny, kind of immature, jokey, whatever. But yeah, whatever. He's on the grill. He pulls out a wiener, pretends it's its own penis, whatever. Very juvenile, but it's fine. But then he's like, hey, I'm going to do the magic trick. And she's like, no, look.
She fully says, no, do not do this.
And he's like, I thought you liked it. I don't like it. I've been lying to you. And maybe that's why he decides to do it, because he feels so betrayed that she never told him I didn't like this magic trick.
It's very much a, like, fuck you, woman, don't tell me what to do. Like, if you say no, I'm just going to do it. And honestly, this, to me, it is a deal breaker.
Yeah.
Like, if I actively say, please do not do this, even though the friends are cheering him on, we should note it's actually only the men who get any kind of pleasure out of this. The women either look uncomfortable or embarrassed for Amy.
But hey, Joe, what is the magic trick?
Okay, so we call it HP, or human penis. So he comes out in admittedly very hot looking shorts. He's bare chested. He's got a helmet on. So basically, he looks like a penis with balls.
He's got a helmet on, but he has two basketballs strapped to his ankles to mimic the testicles.
Yes. And the men who are watching this performance make noises. Like they basically, they do the 2001, whatever song it is.
Dun, dun, dun.
And this is because Bobby's mouth is full. So at the end of this, at the climax, he spits it out like a penis ejaculating, and all the men whoop and laugh, and the women are not amused. And you just think, this would be great if it was a bachelor party.
Yes!
Or if it was a men's weekend at the cottage. This is, like, it's just not appropriate. And your wife asked you not to do it.
For me, I was just like, this isn't even impressive. What about this is A, magic, and B, all
it's
you
stupid.
did, you strapped some basketballs to your ankles, you put milk in your mouth, and you jumped around and you sprayed it out. Like that's not magic. That's not even impressive.
No. And folks, if you think we're being too hard on him, it's definitely, the actor is charismatic and he sells this in a way that you think, oh my God, he's so dumb. Good thing he's hot. But if you were married to this man and he did this regularly at social gatherings,
this is his party trick.
Like, you were already having a difficult time, and then he goes ahead and does this when you ask him not to. To me, it's a sign of disrespect and proof that this marriage already has both feet in the ground.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so intercut between the introduction of the Ohio State slut and then the HB performance, we have China out trying to barter for health insurance with a limo containing Arthur and Claudia. They are played by John Rose and Louise Sorrell, respectively. They're looking for a three-way. She gets into the limo. She's in the middle of these two, and it's one brief scene. This to me feels so
pointed.
It's so exceedingly silly. I think you could take out this entire sequence and it wouldn't really matter. But again, it does feel like commentary on the state of not just marriage, but also class and also sexual respectability.
Yeah, this feels almost less satire and more parodical almost, where it's like...
It's like a sketch comedy bit.
Well, because this rich people, you have the husband just fondling China Blue, and then the wife, she's like, I think counting money, drinking a martini. No, sorry, China's counting money. The woman's drinking a martini, but she's talking about how, she's not a bigot or anything, but they're talking about a Jewish person that's in their organization or whatever, and how it's not going to look good if he's there. But, you've seen the work I've done with crippled children. Like, I'm not a bigot or anything, but what are we going to do if we have a Jew in here?
Yeah. You're just like, holy shit, these fucking people. I do like that China Blue ultimately just goes, stop, and she gets out of the limo.
So she stops because the woman tells the husband, don't put your mouth on her mouth or something. You don't know how these people have diseases or whatever. And so China has too much self-respect to take $200 for this threesome because she was just disrespected by this woman.
Also, how did they imagine this sex scene was going to go down? If we're not even going to kiss her because she might have diseases or she might be dirty.
Yeah.
How are you going to fuck her?
Yeah,
what was going to happen here, Trey?
Condom, I guess. But still, but yeah, I think that's the main reason this scene is here, is to show there's sex workers can have dignity and self-respect too.
That, and I think that just people are ridiculous. Like, because you've got wealth, because you're married, it doesn't actually make you any better. You know, these people are clearly bigoted and they're very well to do, but they're not good people.
Yeah, but it's also showing, hey, like, they don't have intimacy either, even though they have all the money in the world. They still have to break to resort to outside sources for their pleasure.
Yeah, which, to be clear, folks, we are not suggesting that if you are in an open relationship, if you're poly or any of that, it doesn't mean that your relationship is not functioning or something like that.
No. But I do think
the movie is maybe suggesting, like, this is another example of an unsuccessful marriage.
Yes. But truthfully, I do wonder if Sandler views that as a failure of a relationship, you know? If opening up your marriage is a negative in his eyes. I mean, I don't know if I fully get that from the movie. I think maybe that could be viewed as one of the weaknesses of the movie, is that you can't always kind of get a grasp on what its mindset is or what its opinion is, or maybe the lack of opinion is, again, the point where it's asking us to make that decision.
It feels like we're raising things and letting people make up their own minds about it. But these people are coded. I mean, they're not negative villains. They're not trying to kill her or anything, but they are not good people.
Yeah, it's not a positive portrayal.
No, not at all. We should note that the other thing that is happening in this sequence of events is that we do see Peter at the peep show. So he's back with this unenthusiastic dancer. He's once again imagining not killing her. Well, he is imagining killing her, because the editing in this sequence is completely different from everything else in the entire film. So it's a bunch of almost staccato shots of him. It looks like he could be stabbing the real woman, but he's actually stabbing his blow-up sex doll, who appears to bleed like a regular woman would. And then it's like, oh, we've got this body, but she's not actually there. It's the doll.
So, okay, I'm glad you brought this up, because I couldn't figure out if this was just a fantasy in his head or if he was actually killing her, because truthfully, much like how we get those insert shots of like the Kama Sutra during the sex scene earlier, we get these insert shots of, yes, him stabbing and a blow up sex doll and it bleeding. I actually thought that the film...
Did you think he actually killed her and he was imagining her as a sex doll?
That's what I thought, yes. Okay. That's what because it's literally objectifying her. She's not a real person. And granted, I don't know. This could just be a fantasy, or it could be an actual thing that he does, because we do see her, see her actual body on the ground. It's a replica of the shot we saw earlier in the film.
It is, yeah.
But
we never go back to this, so we don't know, has he just left this body and nobody discovers it by the end of the film? It's unimportant. I took this to be his fantasies are escalating.
Yeah, and regardless of whether it actually happened or whether it was just a fantasy, it still communicates exactly like how he views at least people of the opposite gender.
Yeah, and more specifically, I think sex workers.
Yeah, very much so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so after the barbecue, we've got this let's have a real come to Jesus conversation in the marriage bed between Bobby and Amy. So this is where he asks her, like, what's bothering you? Is it money? Is it nuclear war? It's neither of those things. It's the fact that she's been faking interest in their sex life for pretty much the entirety of the marriage.
Well, and this blows up because he'll say, like, do you think I'm some kind of machine that I just need to hold a cum in? What do you think makes me cum? And she's tight-lipped for most of this scene.
Yeah, she wants him to stop. She keeps saying, Bobby, I don't want to talk about this. Bobby, don't say that.
But as soon as he says, what do you think makes me come? She just screams at him, I don't care.
I don't care.
Ooh,
Yikers.
Ooh.
Yeah, so this is when he kind of, I want to say, I think everything he responds to her, where he is trying to get her to open up, he refuses to allow her to shut down, which is clearly, this is different fighting styles within a couple. This is something that happened to me in both my current relationship as well as my previous relationship, where you just have to find out how the person fights, because I always thought people were like me. We're going to yell, we're going to get things off of our chests, and then it'll be fine. We can move forward with it, not realizing other people are like Amy, where they want to pull back. They don't want to engage with it. They maybe need to sit with it, or they're not good in the moment and that kind of stuff. And as a couple, I think you really need to learn the fighting style of the other person, because guess what, everybody? Fighting in a couple is inevitable. Completely normal.
Yeah.
And maybe even a little healthy, as long as you're not doing what he does. He says all the right things, but he says it in such an intense, like, almost antagonistic way. Like, I can't imagine even if she had have opened up and tried to have a productive conversation with him, he's not in the right frame of mind anymore to hear anything she would have said.
No, honestly, I mean, I understand what he's saying. If my husband said, I don't care what makes you come, like, that's I mean, that sucks, man.
That's the point of no return.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can't come back from that.
Yeah.
Oof. So this is the breakup. We're not together after this. Bobby ends up confronting Joanna at her actual house this time. So he has come to the suburbs, and it's like, oh, this is not okay. This to me was, he's a low-key stalker.
Mm-hmm.
So we should note, her house is gorgeous. She has outfitted it with all of this erotic art, but it's huge. It's massive. And she's got a drafting table and some other fun things, like just a really great space.
Well, and so this is when she brings up, they say that in the East it's forbidden to make love to someone who knows your secrets. And he tells her, well, you'd never be horny there. And her retort is, well, I'm never horny here. So,
yeah. So it does seem like she has almost severed her sexual life, and she can only engage with it when she's got the wig on, when she's China Blue, when she's in the red light district, and when she's here and she's Joanna. I guess she's effectively Amy.
Well, and again, that's where I'm not to go back to the ending again, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, so like what is different about Bobby that makes her suddenly, apparently, presumably, horny in this space now?
He's just nice, and she finds him attractive.
I guess.
To me, that's so unsatisfying.
But maybe it's meant to be. Maybe it's meant to be.
Maybe it is. Honestly, folks, I'm so curious to hear your reactions to this film.
Yeah, me too.
So he says that he wants to be friends with her. And I actually find this conversation to be very inauthentic. And maybe this is the start of where we move towards the end of the film, because she is scared / trepidatious about him being here. Like, this is very clearly an invasion of her privacy. She doesn't like the fact that he has followed her here. This is her space. But when he says, oh, I just want to be friends, I'm not going to bother you, and he goes to leave, she kind of says, well, if you ever need anything from me, like, let me know. And I just thought, no, I feel like we needed another scene in between these where she maybe had some time to think about it, because I don't believe that she would have gotten here in the time that has passed.
Yeah, I agree completely. But the thing is, though, a lot of that happens off screen.
It does. Yeah. Because I feel like, okay, we're really moving into the last act of the film at this point, and things start to feel like they happen a lot faster moving forward. So Bobby goes to visit his son Jimmy at school. We do the divorced or the separated dad thing. It's not about you. I'll always love you. Blah. Who cares? Joanna takes a scary mannequin ride with Peter.
Dude.
This is shot so freakily. If I was a woman and I saw this and I had any kind of job where I was working in a loft where I have to take an elevator like this, if I had to work in, commerce and I had to ride some kind of dimly lit elevator to get up and down floors, this is fucking terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. There's all these like mannequins in this freight elevator, but I love this. So because we're calling this an erotic thriller, and it is that. The Shane character is the horror element of this movie.
Oh, sure.
Because he is, whether he is or is not, he's meant to be a serial killer of some sort, whether he's killed someone or not.
He's definitely a threatening figure towards women, but most specifically China Blue / Joanna.
But I love this. So we follow Joanna's eye line to one of these mannequins that is then holding the bladed steak dildo that Reverend Shane was holding earlier. And then she looks up and we see that he's standing in the corner of the elevator behind all of these mannequins looking at her.
He's Where's Waldoing, kind of like hidden amongst them. And it's just so creepy. And Anthony Perkins' eyes are giant. He looks feral. It is so great. It's so effective. And he doesn't attack her. He basically, now that he knows who she truly is, because he's been trying to figure out in the same way she's been trying to figure him out. And he says, there's no more deceptions now, because he thinks he knows who she really is, because he's figured out Joanna is China Blue. And so he now says, are we ready to love each other? Because I'm only trying to save you. And he's saying this to her as she's literally running away from him.
Can't take a hint.
It's so good. It's so good, though. So at home, Joanna puts on her China wig with shaky hands. And then this is when she reclaims her agency. She gets her power back because she takes control. So she lures a blonde cop played by Randall Brady in for a leather S&M sex session. So she basically ties him up to the bed. We're having really aggressive sex. We're kind of getting it all out. And then she sodomizes him with his own police baton.
And this is when Shane is watching her stroking the bladed vibrator as he's watching this happen. And so, this entire scene was cut for the R-rated theatrical cut because, people were not ready to see a sex worker sodomize a police officer with his own weapon.
Okay, so I need to pause here. So initially I thought, is this a sexual assault? And I wasn't entirely sure. He does spit in her face at the end of this because he was obviously unhappy with how aggressive it was. But I think that's the kind of key thing. I don't know that he wasn't enjoying it. I think that she just did it too much.
I didn't get that, actually. So I actually just thought the spitting was a continuation of their play.
Oh, okay. So you don't think he had a problem with this at all?
I don't think so. But here's the thing, though. I think it's a blurred line because we've seen her enact rape play earlier in the film, and it does kind of make sense to me that a person in a position of authority, like a police officer, one of their kinks would be submission, and that's to me what this is. And we don't know if this is a first time trick for her, if this is something that she's seen before. I think it's a first time thing, but because there's no dialogue, there's no...
Right. It plays like a fantasy, for sure.
It does.
To the point where this time around, I even questioned, is this even a real police officer?
And we don't know. And truthfully,
we don't know.
Because after he spits on her, she goes in the bathroom, she's cleaning up, she's crying. And so...
But is she crying because of this, or is she crying because of what happened with Peter? I think it's the latter.
I think you're exactly right. Yeah. Or because, you could read this as, maybe she's like realizing, this isn't what I want to do with my life, which I think is a terrible message going against the rest of the film. But yeah, so I don't think she's crying over this experience with the police officer or the fact that he spit on her. I think that this unlocks something in her to where she could finally feel something about her interaction with Peter, or even maybe where she's realizing her feelings for Bobby in this moment.
Well, and it's very important that this scene, this moment of emotional vulnerability, whether, rape, sexual assault, fantasy role play, all this kind of stuff, like setting that aside, this has clearly produced some kind of reaction in her that we have not previously seen. And then she comes out after reapplying her makeup into the street, and she gets propositioned by a middle-aged woman in her car who says, I'd like to hire you to come and have sex with my dying husband.
Oh, and
This is the emotional, ball burster of this entire movie.
It is. And it's not even for me the moment where she gets to Ben, the dying man in question, but it's when the woman says, we've been married for 28 years, but I haven't been able to touch him ever since his diagnosis. That touched me on such a level where I was just like, oh my God. Oh, it's so sad because it's like she wants to feel something for her husband. And I'm sure this is something that a lot of people could relate to, where it's like, something medically happens and you just lose all of that sexual attraction for them, but you don't lose your love for that person.
Right. And that seems to be a very key differentiator here, right? This woman absolutely loves her husband. Her husband loves her so much that he's like, she forced this. I don't actually want this. He turns her down when, China Blue comes in. I love that she tries to do her usual, hey, sailor, what's going on, kind of phony baloney routine. And he puts a stop to it immediately. He doesn't want that artifice. Mm-hmm. And she ultimately ends up taking off the wig. And she introduces herself as Joanna to Ben, who we should know is played by Gerald S. O'Loughlin. A lot of people highlight this as the most important moment in this film. If you can forget where the end of the film leaves Joanna, this scene sells it because it is a true, authentic, emotionally vulnerable moment with Joanna instead of China Blue.
Yes, and this is a quote from Turner in that autobiography, Send Yourself Roses. So she says about this whole sequence, she goes, Joanna's sense of worthlessness was reinforced by becoming China Blue, but at the same time, she proved her power by becoming sexually attractive to men. I see that confusion about sexuality in many women and ultimately in myself. I hoped other women would see it and identify with her when she regains her sense of self. One of the most famous scenes, and the most moving, was a beautiful one in which a dying man's wife hires China Blue. The wife can't bring herself to sleep with him, but wants him to feel like a man. China Blue takes off her dress and shoes and is in her bra and panties when the man says, "Stop, I can't do this. I love my wife. I understand, but I can't do this." It was really so touching. The writer wanted me to strip altogether in that scene. I said, that's not what this is about.
No.
What the scene was about to me is what China does next. She takes off the blonde wig, which symbolizes her identity as China Blue, explains why there's not more than one wig, and tells him her real name. She gives this man the gift of her own vulnerability as he's giving his back to her.
Right. Yeah. What's interesting is that I saw a parallel between this scene. Do you remember the scene in Mysterious Skin where we've got Joseph Gordon-Levitt getting hired to go and...
Oh, with the sick man, the man with the lesions all over his body.
Yes, the man with AIDS.
Yes.
And it's not about sex. It's about intimacy, but also humanity, right? It's about giving this person, in both cases, a dying man, the opportunity to feel something, to feel human again. In Mysterious Skin, I think it's about just the power of human touch. And here in this film, it's about just your recognition as a human being. Just because you're dying doesn't mean that you're not still human.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. Those are standout scenes in both of these films because they're just so raw, right?
Well, yeah. It's just unfiltered human emotion. It's beautiful, honestly. It's beautiful in a movie that doesn't have a lot of beauty in it outside of, the obvious aesthetic choices we're doing.
Yeah, beautiful to look at, but, not within the world of these characters.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that sets the stage. You know what? Joanna is now more open and receptive to allowing a human being into her world as Joanna and exploring emotional intimacy. So Bobby knocks on her door because he needs the real her. Joanna worries that she's going to disappoint him. And this time when they have sex, it's perfect with these beautiful silk sheets, and we don't get, the very performative silhouette. We actually get to watch them.
Oh yeah, this actually reminded me of the lesbian sex scene in The Hunger.
Oh, again, very stylish.
Very stylish, again, under these wavy, almost sheer sheets. It's much more, again, sensual than sexual almost.
I think the other reason I like it is because it feels edited for length. We understand exactly what we need to, but it's not redonkulously drawn out like the silhouette sex scene from earlier.
And maybe that is meant to then make that the more quote-unquote, graphic sex scene of the movie.
Night long.
But it's just, again, there's something more robotic about that scene than there is in this sex scene. So maybe we aren't to find that earlier sex scene super hot.
Maybe. Okay, because you just unlocked something in me. I'm thinking about the world of gay pornography and how artificial it sometimes is. Folks, bear with me. Oftentimes it's okay, we will begin with a blowjob and then maybe you will get reciprocated, but we might then move on to fingering or eating
ribbing,
ass. And then we'll go on to 1 to 2 to 3 different sexual positions. That's what that silhouette sex scene feels like, right? It's not that it's rote and robotic, but it does feel okay, and now set up for the next position, and then set up for the next position, and
maybe that's the artifice playing into it, though, too, because we aren't actually seeing them. We're seeing a silhouette of them, so it is artificial, on it, even the way we're watching it. Whereas this, we are, even though we're seeing it through sheets and stuff, we are seeing their actual bodies.
Right. Yes. Yeah. We actually get to see them as human beings.
Yeah.
Also, say artifice.
Artifice? Am I saying artifice?
Artifice.
Oops.
Okay, so once again, we've got something sexy happening, 2 people connecting, and there's Peter out in the bushes, only this time he's got a goddamn crown of thorns on.
Yeah, again, very on the nose.
What a fucking martyr.
So, okay, before you move on, the next scene is a director's cut scene.
Does this explain why Amy comes to see Bobby at work?
Okay, so wait, so I don't know if this whole scene is in the version you saw, but Amy goes to see him at work, and it's a really lengthy scene. So, Amy tries to go get back with Bobby again. She's at work, she says she's lonely, she misses him, but she also wants to impress the kids, and Bobby is not having any of this. So, does this sound familiar to you then? Have you seen this scene?
So there's a version of this in the one that I watched on Tubi. So he comes to work and she's waiting for him, and she basically says she wants to give it another go, and he sounds uncertain, and she invites him for dinner, and that's basically where it leaves.
Okay. So then this is an extended scene in the director's cut, because basically she brings up, you have a responsibility to your family, and she's trying to convince him to come back, and she realizes, you've clearly met another woman who's a bad influence on you. She says something about, I wonder what bitch showed you another kind of lifestyle.
Whoa,
doesn't want, she doesn't want you to live your old life anymore, but you have a responsibility to your wife and to your children. And Bobby is again.
So is she super unlikable in this moment?
Yes.
Because this doesn't sound great.
Yeah, no. Like she doesn't come across any better. Outside, it starts out okay because she's like, hey, I want you to come back. I realize I've been doing a lot of thinking. I want to get back together. But he's gone. Like he's clearly already moved on from her. Yeah. And then he complains. He complains about the prudery that was also part of his previous life with her. And he said, when she says, something like, I just want you to know how I feel. And he says in a retort, well, it may come as a shock to you, but sex was a pretty damn good way to show how I felt about you, and you didn't want that from me. And so I think this was cut because basically after this sequence, Bobby will go back to Joanna, and she kind of tells him the exact same version of what Amy just told him and what he just told Amy, just through her filter, basically. So it might have seemed redundant to have this scene with Amy and him, but I thought it was kind of important for them to have this hashing out of their lives.
Yeah, because I'll confess, the version that we do see in this cut is she invites him, she says she wants to try it again, and she more or less invites him for dinner. And then we have him telling Joanna that he's only agreed to go to dinner. He's not getting back together with Amy, but she gets upset and she insists that he has to go now because if not, he'll always wonder. And she yells, "You're just so fucking honorable."
Mm-hmm. He's the nice guy, right?
Yes. Yeah. He's trying to make everybody happy because he's the hero. So we do see him at home. Part of me was just like, go out for dinner. Maybe make it nobody's responsibility to cater to the other person's demands. Just try to have a conversation in a neutral, objective space. But no, he literally goes home and she's cooking him a meal. She tries to tell a dirty joke, but he's not really listening because he's distracted. He's clearly not sure he actually wants to be there. And then I like this moment though. She gives him his old football jersey and she admits that it used to turn her on. So we do get that genesis of, okay, she did find him sexually attractive once, and it was part of that persona of him as a football player, which we previously knew because that's how we talked about getting his hot body.
But yeah, so it proves that she was at one point in time a sexual being, a person who craved for sex. She doesn't feel that way now. And truthfully, even her coming back and saying she wants to get back together, that also feels like a performance. Does she really want that? I think she needs to think about that, but we don't really get much more from Amy after these sequences.
No, we should elaborate though. Part of the reason that she said she came back, when she meets him at work, she mentions she woke up in the middle of the night alone and she heard a noise and she had to go investigate by herself. So part of this is
she wants a man protecting
her.
She
wants a man for protection, and it maybe doesn't even need to be him, but we get just enough of this character. In truth, she really is here to advance Bobby's journey, his arc, and so on. She doesn't stand alone quite enough as a character in her own right. I would have loved just a little bit more. You know what? Remake this movie as a mini-series and let Amy be a character in her own right where she gets to unpack, do I actually want to be with Bobby? Do I want to just be with somebody? Or do I just want the thing that I know? Because hypothetically, they've been married for at least, what do you think, 8 years?
At least, yeah. Because they were high school sweet. Oh, no, he says in the beginning, he says it was 11 years because he says 10 at one point, and one of the women's like, I thought you said it was 11. You're saying 10 now.
Yes. Yeah. That's a long time to be married to somebody. So to suddenly have that broken up, it would feel, how do we get back to the normal? Which is, even if it wasn't great, at least I kind of knew what to expect.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're right. Amy is basically out of the movie after the scene.
Yeah.
So Peter breaks into Joanna's apartment, and it's interesting, right? She was actually in the process of taking down her erotica, as if to suggest, I don't need these remnants of China Blue, or I can actually embody them myself. I don't need to look at them. I don't need to keep them framed in glass on the walls.
And this is a thing where it's kind of like, why can't you just merge the Joanna and China Blue? Yeah, why can't you be both? Like, why do you?
That's what I want. Like, to me, the perfect ending of this movie would have been her like doing sexy role play in the China Blue wig with him, and then maybe taking it off, or saying like, I can keep it on tonight or something, as if to suggest I can be this sexual person and still be myself.
Yeah, and I think that Bobby should end the movie alone so he can try to rediscover himself. And not because he doesn't. He'll find someone eventually. I just don't think that Joanna is that person for him. And but I think honestly, your earlier comparison to Cam is really the best version of like how a remake should tackle the themes of this movie and how it should have ended for the Joanna character.
Right. It just feels unnecessarily punitive to her healthy sexual appetite. And maybe this is us willfully misreading the fact that she has repeatedly said, oh, well, I had to do that because I couldn't, I had to separate the sex and who I really am. Like, I do think we're trying to force them together, but it's just because the movie feels so sexually progressive for long stretches, and then at the end it feels very, get back into like a really static, very safe, very milquetoast heterosexual romance with this guy who, like, why is that the takeaway message for this character?
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, Peter has broken in. He's basically tossing her into anything glass that he can. Because he's mad at her. Essentially, he thought that they had had a breakthrough moment when he discovered who she really is. No more deceptions. I'm going to save you. And he seems to be mad to the point of punishing her that she didn't accept him in that moment.
Yeah, so he's come to exercise her demons with his bladed device. I think this is the first time he calls it Superman.
It is.
Okay, yeah, very, very bizarre.
I will say, when he fully throws her into one of these frames and she breaks the glass and she's lying there bleeding, he says, I'm going to save you. And she just yells at him, heal thyself, pimp shit.
Oh my God, I know.
We should all endeavor to use the word
pimp shit.
Pimp shit.
Pimp shit.
Use it sometime this week, folks.
We get more religious iconography. So, like, he pins Joanna to, I called it her architecture board, like her drawing board.
I said her
or
drafting table.
There you go. Yeah. But, like, pins her to it in a crucifixion pose. And so then he becomes a showman. He gets on the piano. He plays what I think are the first notes of the score from The Shining. The boom, 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 boom.
I don't like that.
And then I know you don't. And then that morphs into him singing Get Happy in a seemingly cocaine-fueled binge.
Oh my God. I wrote delirious. He is deliriously playing and singing this. He is out of control.
And maybe if the religious themes of the movie were a bit more clear, because he's like, he jumps to Joanna as if to stab her, but then he cuts her hands free and he asks her to kill him. And he says, one of us has to die so that the other can live. So I'm like, okay, where is that coming from?
Well, yeah, it does feel like a sudden shift where he thought he was going to kill her to save her, but then something in him changes and realizes maybe she is the person who's going to save him by... Or maybe he thinks he's corrupting her by making her a killer. Instead of him saving her, he's going to embrace her corruption or something.
I mean,
because he basically yells at her, kill me, you worthless cunt.
Yeah, basically, yeah, exactly. But this is where I do think the ending of this whole climax is a bit messy, both narratively and thematically, and just in what's happening. But like, she almost stabs him, but he grabs her hand and says, too late, before pouring some milky liquid all over her.
I thought he was going to light her on fire.
Yeah, right? But I mean, it's some cloudy-ass liquid. And he gives her dress back, and he's like, China Blue lives, strip, bitch. And this is all we see, because then we have Bobby showing up and knocking on the door.
Yeah, so he fully breaks in because he hears screaming, and he comes in and he sees what he thinks is China Blue huddled down crying, and this will actually be revealed to be Peter dressed in China Blue drag. He's got scissors, like this is actually a ruse he's using to lure Bobby in so that he can stab him. And before that can happen, we have Joanna now dressed in Peter's reverend outfit. And she leaps out of the darkness and stabs Peter in the back with the Superman dildo. and this kills him. So she has saved Bobby, which I do kind of like. She's the one who ultimately deals with Peter, and she saves Bobby. Bobby was the damsel in distress.
Absolutely. It just doesn't make a lot of sense logistically for me, because I'm kind of like, okay, wait. So he was asking China to kill him, but then they heard Bobby knocking. He was like, okay, actually, you go over there. I'm going to put on your dress and pretend to be him here. Just don't talk. What happened to set this up? Because the setup for this entire sequence doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, and this is very obviously referential to Psycho, right? We have Anthony Perkins dressed in women's garb, confusion of identities and so on. Mm-hmm. It's messy. It's really, really messy, to the point of, I think it actually confuses some of the themes, and, it almost feels like a hastily written rewrite of some kind, where we weren't quite sure how to end this. So we needed to get some kind of violence in there.
And that we are introducing a cross-dressing component to the Shane character. Again, if we're going into, okay, he feels so much shame about these urges he has, and he's really trying to make China/Joanna kill him. Like, that all kind of makes sense, and I could glean that from this, kind of, but it's so underdeveloped and honestly half-baked that I'm just kind of left scratching my head by the end of it.
Yeah, I think it maybe works a little bit better for Joanna/China Blue. So I'm going to bring in two different quotes. I found one piece from a Medium article by Michael Kenny called Crimes of Passion Review. Kathleen Turner is mesmerizing and called Sex Shocker. Okay. And the other one is by Tim Fehrenbach on Letterboxd. So I'm going to start with Tim's because I think it speaks to the China Blue closure. Mm-hmm. So Tim writes, after insisting all along that they are one and the same, the preacher dies wearing China Blue's wig, and the film makes us mistake one for the other before she reclaims her agency with the sex toy that should have been in her hands all along. And in this inversion, it's almost as though that version of her dies with him. In a strange way, he, as in Peter, succeeded after all. I mean, so it's he does exorcise the China Blue out of her.
Or it's like, because she gets kind of faux crucified, so it's her death and eventual resurrection as Joanna shedded the China Blue persona.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then Michael Kenny's point, this is more broadly speaking about the casting of Perkins and what he's doing in this movie. Perkins' priest character could have been a commentary on the tragedy of sexual repression, which I think is correct, specifically homosexuality in the midst of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, because in 1984, we would have been near the heights of the epidemic. So Kenny continues, that would go a long way to explaining the character's rampant misogyny and the wielding of a deadly phallic object as a tool of both salvation and devastation.
Well, maybe it's something that works more allegorically than it does work literally.
I think so. Yeah, these are big ideas.
Yeah.
And it just feels like the film wants to explore it, but is maybe just a little too reticent to do the whole follow through.
But I guess that just seems very bizarre to me, given how audacious so much of the content of this movie is.
Yeah. But I think the movie also succeeds best when it's just allowing these people to throw ideas out there as opposed to actually seeing it all the way through.
Yeah, maybe you're right. But nevertheless, Shane is dead. He dies in Joanna's arms. And our only scene is a bookend. We end back up in group therapy.
Also, I was like, who's Shane? Oh, Peter Shane.
Yeah, right, Peter Shane.
I was like, wait, there's another man in this movie? Okay, yeah, so we're back at divorce group because, we love a bookend. Why not? So Bobby admits that he and Amy have split up for good. They stopped loving each other. Then he met Joanna, and she saved his life. He was scared to say that he was scared when he was married, but Joanna said that it was okay to be scared, and that made him feel more like a man than he has ever felt in his whole life. And then the last line of the movie, then we fucked our brains out.
Yeah, so we end this movie on a punchline, which I think is an interesting choice.
Here's the thing. Is it Eyes Wide Shut?
Kind of, right? A little bit. Like, I could see, I mean, again, like, when I first watched this, and this was the ending, I think both my husband and I were just like, oh my God.
Like, I mean, it's a pretty good way to end it. Like, it's a good joke. It's a good sticker.
Yeah. But the last 15 minutes of this movie, I just think are very perplexing, and I don't think I've fully gotten a grasp on what it's trying to accomplish. I mean, I do think that the sources you brought in actually did kind of shed some more light on it for me, but I'm still not Like,
not
it's not
fully
locked
convinced,
in.
right?
Yeah.
It just doesn't, I don't think it fully works. And it's frustrating, maybe especially frustrating because fully like 3/4 of this movie is working at nearly a 5-star film for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of go into the last act and it feels a little bit rushed and I don't fully love where we're going with Joanna, and it drops it down a pinch. And then this ending just feels a tad undercooked and a little too hasty.
Yeah.
So I end up at about a 4 for this film, but it's so close to greatness. And folks, I can't recommend it enough. Like, this truly is a bit of a revelation, especially as a first time watcher of a Ken Russell film. This is a fucking banger, but I really just wish we could have nailed the ending. The execution is just so slightly off, it kind of tarnishes the film a little bit for me.
Yeah, and this is something from a 1987 quote from Anthony Perkins where he says about the film, he says, "There are great moments in that film that could only come from a genius. Russell was onto something about the nature of religion and evil that few people could ever find. Yet, it was, in the end, a bit of a disappointment because it had no plot, no story. The images were great, but there was nothing to hang them on." And I don't fully agree with that. I think that, again, I think we're looking at more of a thematic thing than like just a literal plot that we're going with here. Allegorical, if you will. But yeah, I think it's what you said earlier, where it's raising a lot of issues and it is interrogating a lot of these issues. But then there are also some things that it's just raising and not doing anything with.
Yeah. And it is slightly difficult to watch from a contemporary perspective. Obviously, all films age and all films are made not in a vacuum. They are reflective of the times in which they are produced and then released. But this film, the ending just feels so conformist. Like, I'm actually really turned off by this idea that the best thing that could happen to Bobby and Joanna is that they end up settling into what I imagine is going to be a very boring traditional relationship. I don't want that for either one of those characters.
I don't either, unless we're meant to believe that their sex life will keep things spicy.
I guess.
They are interesting enough. I mean, that's the thing is like it almost seems like the film is working on a binary, right? Where it's like you either have intimacy or you have sex, but it's like impossible to have both. And
until these two find it, they magically work it out together. Yay.
And maybe that is the takeaway we're supposed to have. Maybe. I mean, and I'm not sure if I don't think that Laughlin and Turner don't have chemistry. They do have chemistry, but he's also just kind of milquetoast in a way that I'm kind of like, this guy though, really? Like,
yeah. He doesn't feel like the guy who would shake her out of that unless she's only ever dated terrible guys, or I don't know,
possible.
But we don't see that, right?
Yeah, we don't.
The other guys that we see her interacting with, for the most part, seem pretty respectful. Maybe they got some sexual hangups. They're not seemingly great in regular relationships, but like, they're not sleazy, problematic dudes. So there's no real disparity between the other Johns we see and Bobby.
Yeah.
Like, the outlier in all of this is Perkins's character.
Yeah, agreed. So, I mean, on a level, I like the film because it leaves me wanting more, and not in a way where I do feel satisfied for the most part with the film as a whole. But yeah, again, like there's just some, I think, mixed messaging in the conclusion where I'm like, wait, like maybe the movie's not doing what I thought it was doing. But whether or not that's good or not, I'm endlessly fascinated by this film, and I think that's better than me walking away saying, eh.
Yeah, and I was shocked to see that there were more people who kind of echoed Perkins' sentiment, where they felt like the film was a bit hollow. You know, this isn't a movie that is strictly relying on its visuals. It's not a Nicholas Winding Refn kind of film. You know, there's more to it than that. And I think part of it is that it just demands to be picked apart. Like, this is a movie that begs for discussion.
I agree.
And those are some of my favorite kinds of films.
Yeah, so if y'all are in our Discord server, please go to town, because I would love to have some conversations with y'all. I'm sure Joe would too. But
oh my God, yes. And also, other Russell films. Do you agree? Like, obviously, The Devils, we've got our eye on, but what about the other ones Trace mentioned?
Yeah, Lair of the White Worm for sure. Which is so fun. I always used to get Lair of the White Worm confused with Kiss of the Spider Woman, and they are two very different films.
Yes, very different.
But anyway, okay, everyone. Well, that has been Crimes of Passion. Passion. Some quick housekeeping before we announce what we're covering next week. If you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us on Blue Sky and Instagram at HorrorQueers. Shoot us an email at horrorqueers@gmail.com. Find us on Letterboxd to keep track of all the films we've covered. If you want to chat with other listeners, please join that aforementioned HorrorQueers Discord. If you have a moment, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you want more content, including ad-free main feed episodes, please support the show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/horrorqueers. If you subscribe today, you'll get 506 hours of Patreon content, including this month's new episodes on Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Forbidden Fruits, Saccharin, Evil Dead Burn, an audio commentary on Howling 2, Your Sister is a Werewolf, and the conclusion of our requel tier coverage of The Vampire Lestat.
Whew, I'm tired.
Me too. But Joe?
Yes.
We got a long one next week. What are we talking about?
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm going to thank/blame avid listener Sam for this. Tabitha, break out your farty fucking aliens because we are going to talk about Dreamcatcher.
Dreamcatcher, one of the most misguided, big-budget, prestige horror films. I can't think of a bigger what the fuck were they thinking movie in recent memory, Joe.
Oh my God. Are we going to have conversation on the level of what we just had, though? Is it going to really allow us to dig deep and interrogate things?
No. And I don't even think it's going to be a ranty episode. Like, here's the thing. I think this movie is an absolute fucking mess. It is embarrassing for almost every party involved, but it's so imminently watchable in a what the fuck were they thinking way that I think we're going to have a lot of fun tearing it apart. But I don't think it's going to come across as vindictive, but we'll see. We'll see.
Okay. Yeah. I love that for us. Also, I love the idea of we're going to produce a new podcast. It's not going to be how did this get made? It's going to be what the fuck were they thinking?
What the fuck were they thinking? But until next time, everyone, we can cross out Crimes of Passion.
Indeed. And cross out horror queers.